it's time to sink our teeth into some of the nitty-gritty of this Vainglory action. Let's take a look at our bracket as we head towards the very first matchup. And I can tell you guys that it's going to be the European 3rd seed up against the European 6th seed. It's Mousesports going against G2 esports to kick off things today. And this one's going to be one heck of a matchup, because I feel like of all of the matches today, this is the one where the seeding is least representative of how good these teams actually are.
Yeah, it's a little bit misleading. Even though it's the 3 and the 6 seed, you expect there to be a bit of a gap. I don't think there really is any between these two teams. They are so evenly matched. The way that they play the game is very similar. They both have very standout players in each role. But you go and look at their history this season. They have faced off against each other twice, and the overall game record between them is 3-2 in favor of Mousesports. So there is not a whole lot of wiggle room.
Yeah, I think they're comparable, because if you look at Mousesports, they started strong and then ended a little weaker in the season. But G2 started really weak and then ended the season in week 7 looking really strong. So if anything, they're actually really close in skill tier, I think, right now.
Yeah, the question is, have they met halfway in amongst all of that moving up and down in the standings? Let's take a look first at Mousesports as a team. This is a team that they're renowned for sheer mechanical ability, especially players like I'm the Doom, for example, known for how great he is, but Atfel and Justman as well, really stepping up this season. They started off the season exceptionally strong. They look like easily the best team in Europe right at the very beginning.
And they were dominant. We were talking about this team, the 180 for this organization, from being almost the joke of the European scene to then all of a sudden winning multiple weeks in a row. And we were wondering, is there any team that could beat them? And so there is so much when they are on their game, when they are firing on all cylinders. That's a question that has to come back, is there anyone that can beat them when they're at the top of their game?
Yeah, and Apple and I'm the Doom, when they are focused and on the same page, they just perform exceptionally well. And Justman, when he's on a really comfortable captain like Finn, etc., and his Lance, he makes plays for his team and helps his carries either survive or be able to focus down an enemy hero quickly.
Yeah, this is definitely a superstar lineup, a lineup of players that across the board have had some stellar performances across the course of this season. And we actually took these 3 players aside yesterday to have a few words with them and see what the emotions are like within the squad heading on into the tournament.
We actually have been taking a big break from Vainglory. We had some field problems. We have our secret weapon, which we're using only in tournaments, and that's Doom's Hero Ball.
People should expect some crazy pocket picks.
I'm pretty sure that you can expect some pretty cool stuff from us and that you will be highly entertained.
So just watch out for me.
Absolute trio of badasses right there. But the key thing there, they're saying that they've got some interesting pocket picks and to prepare to be entertained. Cannot wait to see what they bring out during the draft. But let's take a look at their opponents on this one. It's going to be G2 esports. Now, G2, this season was kind of a sad story until the final week. They managed to get themselves a victory on the board, and it was a phenomenal week for them.
Yeah, it was an incredible week. Getting that first place finish was so much momentum coming into the Unified Live Championship to be able to finally get that first place, break the side and show this is the team that was #1 seed going into London. They had a couple of hiccups, a couple of behind the scenes issues that kept them from being able to perform the way they wanted to during the season. But it looks like they have that figured out, and they are so dangerous now.
And one of the things we kept on talking about during the season was this team, they were struggling to practice. People weren't able, there was school commitments and things like that. They've had a month before this event where they can practice, where they can get together. Are we expecting to see this rise to glory?
Yeah, and I think they will tighten up their play. You know, they have given team aces when they're ahead, so they need to make sure to not make such mistakes against Mousesports here. But they also need to make sure they play decisively, because that EU play waiting style doesn't work. It's the play-making style, the aggressive play style that works in this meta right now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how proactive these teams are going to be. That's a conversation we often have with these top teams in Europe. And the question for G2 is, can they perform at the same level as the top teams? Can they prove themselves to be a top team once again? And we actually asked that question to them as we had some words with them yesterday as well. So let's see how G2 were feeling, how confident they are coming in.
Yeah, we are feeling confident because We actually have some strong comms we can use in these games, and we know their weaknesses really well.
I hypercarry strategy because the early game is super aggressive and they won't let us get to the late game. We either have to play a different playstyle or we have to make sure that the laner doesn't die.
I want to be the best player, or at least the best jungler in the world. If I see someone who is better than me, I get motivated.
So G2 feeling confident, sounding prepared, I think is the general vibe I get from that video. They sound like they've really put the work in before this event.
Yeah, and they said they talked it. They said they want to be more proactive, and if they are going to play a more late game scaling comp, they need to protect Hundor, and this is the key to this team. If his Hundor can scale and carry, and he's protected well and positions well, this team can make a lot of plays happen.
Now, when we head into this series, I think one of the questions across the board is going to be mechanics, right? Both of these teams rely on mechanical players like Hundor, for example, but on the side of Mouse, that player, in my eyes, is definitely I'm the Doom. He's going to be the player to watch for me because this man, when we spoke to Mouse yesterday, personally, we were having a couple of conversations with them. One of the things Just Man said is, we have a secret weapon. He's called I'm the Doom. This man, back in London, was known as this Kestrel one-trick pony, but his hero pool has now become a hero ocean.
Yeah, he can play pretty much any hero in the game, but the matchup with him and Dark Potato is going to be so crucial because that's how, both teams, their play styles, even though there's a lot of focus on the lane, it starts in the jungle. So I'm the Doom. He's been the more aggressive of the two in his recent weeks during the Vainglory 8, and if he can keep that up, that could be a very key factor for Mousesports.
And what I love of I'm the Doom is any hero he plays, he makes it like his signature hero. You know, for his CP Kestrel, his Salmon, but his CP Blackfeather just did so much work. So I'm really looking forward to see what he's going to play in jungle here.
Yeah, even playing a lot of Batiste as well this season, one of his top threes as well, but an exceptional player, and I fully expect him to perform here on this stage. And speaking of the stage, actually, one of his teammates isn't as experienced. Just Man and I'm the Doom, they played back in London on the stage, but Apfel, this is his first time here. Are we expecting to see a little bit of stage jitters coming in? How much pressure is on Apfel's shoulders?
I think there's always going to be a little bit of stage jitters for someone on their first time at a live event, at least for the first game. But you have to be able to rein it in. He's going to have these veterans in I'm the Doom and Justman who can help to keep those emotions in check. But it's going to be so difficult being the only player on the stage for this series that has not been there before.
Now, I want to talk a little bit more about G2 because they mentioned in their interview that they have some compositions prepared. They've clearly been figuring out different drafts and different ways that they can play the game. But one thing that we kind of know G2 for is when they get their victories, when they look good, it's these combo comps, right? Where they can all work together, they can go for these team fights and combine ultimates to really make things happen. Is that something that you can expect to see in the current meta? Because things have shifted from the regular season.
Yeah, and I would love to see them get up like a Grace with a Cruel. That's extremely strong meta right now. And with Dark Potato on his Cruel, he loves playing those utility junglers that can offer a lot of support for Hundor.
All right, well, we are into the first draft of the Unified Western Live Championship here in the City of Angels. Idris and Catherine going to be the first bans, and instantly, I'm the Doom grabs his Kestrel.
And we're already seeing the difference from Update 2.6 to Update 2.7. Lyra and Grace not being targeted immediately, both of them available into the second pick. You expect to see at least one of them come through, but it will be the Lance, making sure that Lance does not go over to Mousesports. I think Lance is going to be a key this tournament.
Yeah, and I think they took the Lance to secure it. They banned the Lyra, and if Mousesports does not ban Grace, I think G2 may potentially take the Grace here because they want someone that can initiate and CC on the Doom CP Kestrel.
Not only that, but we know that G2 can flex the Lance. It can go into the jungle with Dark Potato, or it can stay in the captain role with Keanu. So they are a very flexible team. It's a very flexible pick for them. Blackfeather going to be banned away here as well.
It's important to mention Dark Potato's Lance, right? Because in the final week, he was an absolute god on that weapon power Lance. And in fact, it looks like it is going his way. The Grace will be locked in for G2.
Yeah, and I expect it. I mean, it makes sense because Kestrel, you need someone that can engage. Grace, level max on her Benediction, has a range of 9. She'll get on that Kestrel immediately, and then Lance will follow up and CC her, and then they'll just lock her down. So that's the strategy G2 is picking to play against Mousesports here. So now Mousesports needs to play something like potentially a Finn that could protect Kestrel with the Polite Company, the CC, and the Quibble that can stop the Grace or the Lance. that could be an option here because they have to be very careful with how Kestrel can be targeted very easily here.
Yeah, they could also look for the Lyra, or never mind, that's already banned. Just kidding. Getting off to a good start. But yeah, the Finn, maybe they could go Arden, because with the Echo, you can have the double gauntlet to try and protect, but here comes the Sky.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting pick because we already mentioned earlier, weapon power Sky is now a thing, but both of these can be flexed to both roles, surely.
Yeah, especially with I'm the Doom. We know him for his CP Kestrel. We haven't really seen him play Sky because Sky just hasn't been in the meta very much, but this could very easily end up being a weapon Sky in the lane for FL.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a weapon Sky because she can strafe with her inherent basic attack ability. She can easily move side to side, and then that Arden's been picked up. But I really like the composition for Sky. Is good at dodging Lance's skill shots, and Grace can't land the Holy Nova against a really mobile Sky.
That's going to be difficult, but the Celeste will be the final lock-in here for G2. We mentioned these CP laners have been coming on in, and that's what we're going to see coming out for Hundo.
Yeah, I really like the Celeste pick. I'm so happy to see Celeste just back in the meta in the lane. I feel like she can really snowball a game incredibly well. As long as if he lands an Impale onto Sky, Sky's just going to implode.
Yeah, they got to be careful because picking a Celeste into a weapon Sky, we did not see that work very well in the East Asia Championships. So they have to protect Hundo again. That'll be the key to their strategy, is keep Celeste alive and potentially win the fight late game.
One thing that is important to mention though is Hundo, even when it wasn't meta, played Celeste in the lane back in the regular season. So he has experience. This is not something that he's new to, but it's enough from us. It's time to get into the first game of the Unified Western Live Championship. Let's pass it back up to Jaws and Action Jackson.
Thank you very much, Munchables. Here we go, AJ. The first game of the LA Live Champs. G2, they're first in Mouse. This is going to be a tough one.
This is going to be a really great game, though. I mean, Mousesports, you heard it on the analyst desk and from our interviews earlier on. This is a team that came out of the gate swinging when it actually came to the summer season, but they did fall off a little bit later on. G2, on the other hand, kind of bounced back a little later. You know, they had a really tough split one, managed to claw their way into a championship spot. But this is also a team that historically has performed incredibly well. I mean, this is the only team that's actually been able to take a series internationally from Europe. So that's a big accolade for them. And I'm sure it's something they'd like to better this time around. I'm sure they want to go all the way. Mousesports too. Should be an exciting game.
And that's what's so scary, isn't it? G2, they've taken games off North American teams, but now coming in as this underdog EU team in the bottom seed. Can they reclaim their throne like they once did, sitting up at number one? Mouse, incredibly animalistic, mechanical gods.
They really are. I have been hearing from some of the people I've been talking to, players and analysts, all kinds of people, that G2 is actually a lot stronger than maybe you'd think based on their season finish. You know, a lot of people are sort of assuming that they might actually have the edge here against Mousesports. Now, it's really tough to tell, right? It could go either way.
Could do. And here we go, on to the fold. The first game, Mouse versus G2. Ready to see this one rock and roll. Atfel, he's on the Sky versus that Celeste in lane. It's exactly what Dowsy talked about.
It is indeed. We are seeing a little bit of action down there in the jungle. Both of these captains are ones that can try and make some plays early on here. But let's talk about this lane matchup, because I really think you've got to be paying attention to Hundor and Apfel. They are both very mechanically skilled players. Hundor is someone who really made a breakout performance when he joined the Vainglory 8 a while back. And now he's turned into one of the names to really watch.
Hang on a second. First blood goes over to G2. Dark Potato's going to secure it. Atfel falls.
Very nice rotation there. This is something that I was working my way up to. If you're looking at the compositions from these two teams, one thing that G2 has in spades is crowd control. Both the Lance as well as that Grace are great at jumping onto the back line, trying to lock someone down. Now later into the game, once Apfel has Surrey Strike and the increased range on her lock-on, it can be a bit of a different situation, right? Maybe you're going to be able to escape there. Also, you're going to have teammates backing you up. But early in the game, it's very, very tough for a Sky to get away when you've taken Forward Barrage at level 1. Now, later though, this is what you've really got to be paying attention to with the comps, because there's going to be good crowd control from G2, but there is a lot of mobility and, of course, the Arden to help the teammates get away.
I mean, either Dooms are going to be a slippery snake on the Kestrel, targeting the Elder Tree into the moment. Keanu wants to go in and get it. Who actually got that one? I think it was. A root does land onto Justman. He's in trouble. Holy Nova, this could be the second blood. It is. Dark Potato secures it for himself. I'm the Doom maybe in a little bit of trouble here. Keanu chasing him up. Only Nova's available in a couple of seconds time. Dark Potato has that Impale. Slow comes through. Impale lands. There we go. Dark Potato, third kill. 2 minutes in. Adfel wants a little bit of revenge. Hundor running away. That forward barrage not quite connecting. But G2 off to a flying start. Oh, Adfel, where you going? Surrey strikes away. Dodges out. Dark Potato taking damage from the turret, but he's going to be all good.
I like the attempt there, though. G2, this is a team playing with some serious momentum right now, Jaws. Already trying to make some plays. Oh, gotta be careful.
Hundor fairly low. Dodges that. Adfel moving forward. Hundor one shot away. There's the Surrey strike. Gets his revenge, but that turret almost takes him out. Luckily, Justman's there to back him up, but Keanu couldn't do much in that situation.
Yeah, Hundor actually, it's unfortunate he's the one that got punished for the over-aggression of his captain and his jungler there, but sometimes it happens. They definitely needed to play a little bit more safely. I like the attempt, had the skill shots landed, maybe that goes a different way, but that's just how it is. Mousesports, not out of this one. They're finding their way back here in the early game. They are 1,000 gold in deficit, though. That is pretty substantial. There's a big wave that is possible for Apfel to take once he gets back to lane, though, so that might help equalize things. Talking a little bit more about the lane, though, we've got to mention the fact that, there might be another gank, actually.
Dark Potato doesn't miss the Impale. That fell very handy to take that Vanguard coming out from Justman. He's going to be kind of the catalyst, the savior of him at the moment, but G2 piling on the pressure. Hundor does miss the stun, but like you mentioned, there's so much lock-up CC. If one lands, everything is going to land.
It's really difficult to safely position and farm right now, because early in the game, especially on Weapon Sky, you have to be using your basic attacks to get the creeps, but if you're in basic attack range, you're absolutely within range of Grace's dash and Mance's Impale. It's a very scary situation. By forcing the wave in like this, they're doing two things, G2. They're actually creating a response.
Hang on a second. Justman caught up. There's the lockdown of CC. Apfel dashing forward, manages to pick up the kill on the back line. Keanu falls. Hundor's the next target. Apfel finds another kill. I'm the Doom securing it, and Dark Potato escapes the tail between his legs. Mouse now evening the gold up as well.
This is really interesting. It's kind of a crystallization of the differences between these two teams, I think. What G2 is doing is strategically very smart. They're forcing reactions out of Mousesports. They're saying you can't farm the jungle Doom, you're not going to hit your item spikes, so you got to help Sky in the lane. They're making Sky farm under turret, not something that Sky as a weapon power laner is very good at doing early on. But they do have to be careful.
Apfel's in trouble. What a place to back.
No!
Keanu says thank you very much. That's a kill for the support. And G2 inch ahead in gold once more.
Well, I was about to say mechanical gods for Mousesports, but after that back, might have to temper that a little bit.
Positional gods, maybe not so much. Mechanical, maybe. Dark Potato again looking for a small engagement. Mouse, no laner on their side. They're forced once again back to that turret.
All right, so G2, having picked up the kill on Apfel there, not only did they force him back, make him lose some experience, they're making him farm under the turret again. They're really doing a good job of shutting down any kind of push gank opportunities as well, although it's difficult for the Kestrel and the Ardent to gank in the same way that Lance and Grace can. Hundor, through all this, I mean, even after dying twice, is doing a pretty good job of farming. You know, Apfel and him are very even right now, but Hundor is the one that's definitely setting the tempo with G2, so he's doing a nice job. I think we got to talk a little bit about Dark Potato here as well. Now, this composition really could have gone one of two ways, right? I mean, they could have put Grace in the jungle with the Lance captain. They could have done it this way. But Dark Potato is so well known for his Lance. I love seeing him bring it out at the championships. This is something that he is one of the most well-known players for. And going for this tension bow early is going to give him so much damage.
And Dark Potato has the launch. Oh my god, good route. Oh, that's a two-man stun as well into the core collapse. And that's going to be I'm the Doom, just using those boosts to get away. No kill going through yet for G2. Perfect layering of CC, but Mouse somehow survived.
Hundor is not super close to level 6. If he was, oh, there he is. He was so close that it looked like he wasn't close. Might have been able to go for that snipe.
Apfel takes a lot of damage. One shot, one kill. Strikes Hundor in the lane. They're going to chase this one up. Dark Potato taking a lot of damage as well. No more cooldowns for Mouse, and level 6 almost across the board for G2 at the moment.
Talking about snipes, that was a very nice one shot, one kill coming out from I'm the Doom. Relieved a lot of the pressure that G2 has been placing in the lane, and actually, given that they're both quite healthy, they might go for something here.
Keanu might be in a little bit of trouble. Dip, duck, dive, and dodge away. Takes a bit of forward barrage damage as well. Dark Potato is going to come towards the lane. Oh, here comes the Solar Storm. Is he going to clip him? Oh, I'm the Doom. Takes it for
He was watching that time. He was watching that time on his back. All right, so this game, very frenetic, Jaws, very back and forth, which is actually kind of interesting. I don't think you'd anticipate the amount of fighting that is happening coming out of Hundor especially. He really wants to farm, but with the jungle composition he has on his team, you kind of want to utilize that because it's just so good in the early game. It is giving some windows to Mousesports, so especially Apfel. Now that he's got his Surrey Strike and his first level of his ultimate, he's going to be able to navigate around these fights a lot better.
Hundor's going to be scaling up, like you mentioned earlier. He is 0-2, and that's what I tell my team all the time. By the way, I'm scaling. You know, I'm not very good in the early game. I'm a Celeste. I've got 1 item. Just let me scale up. Now he's got 2. He's got the Eve of Harvest and Frostborn as well. That's going to help them just kite the team fights rather readily. Or G2 more than happy to just take it to Mouse at this moment in time. Level 6 almost approaching here across the board for G2. Dark looking to go in. Can he get another stun onto Atfel? Does end up missing.
Yeah, that's a nice ability to get out of the field, but they got to be careful of the poke here. I'm the Doom has a Shatter Glass already, so the one shot is very dangerous, as are those Glimmer shots. But without the stun available from Apfel, that does lock down a lot of the crowd control. Makes it mostly about the active camo trap, which obviously you can play very easily around compared to a lot of things.
Oh my goodness. Atfel has half your HP gone from one Heliogenesis from Hundor. Now I'm the Doom. Let's look at him. He's on this Kestrel. Kind of known for his Kestrel. It's quite terrifying now that he's got a Shatter Glass on board with a little bit of energy regeneration. He's going to be slinging Glimmer shots out left, right, and center. He's on point with those. It's going to be very hard for G2 to actually kite back. Atfel taking a lot of damage here. Death from Above does come down to segregate him from the rest of his team. Does get stunned up as well. This could be another kill, but Divine Intervention comes through. Gauntlet as well from Mouse used, but Hundor the only one caught up. 1 shot, 1 kill is going to strike. But it isn't going to strike true just yet. No kills go over to either side, but that's, again, another big cooldown for Mouse.
This is actually a really dicey situation for G2 because it had to back a member. I'm the Doom's still pretty healthy. The Glimmer Shots, look at how much they're chunking the turret here. You really don't want to let Mouse push you in. This is why, to a certain extent, G2 was playing so aggressively earlier on in the lane. They don't want this exact situation to happen. Now, why that happened is also interesting. I mean, Keanu Nakoa going for that aggressive move when he did seemed a little out of character. It was after the cooldown had reset on Death from Above. You saw how effectively that zoned him out. If he had actually been stunned quickly enough by Core Collapse, which landed just after Divine Intervention, that fight's totally different. I mean, Keanu's definitely going down. Also, Hundor, he got stunned in the Gauntlet, so he wasn't doing anything to Mouse during that fight. G2, there's a lot of small edges they could have taken in that fight. There's a lot of things that could have gone better, but at the same time, the big one for me is that Core Collapse early on could have been huge if he was able to actually stun up Apfel.
Now, Mouse, their drafts have been a little bit questionable over the course of last split. And right now, they've got a perfect composition just to chunk down this turret like you were mentioning. Those Glimmer shots really starting to hurt now, and that 4 barrage could have cut. Good at doing a lot of damage straight up as well. Speaking of damage straight up, Dark Potato maybe looking for a little something here. With that tension bow, it does do a fair bit of damage. Didn't really need to chunk that one, Keanu, but he decided to anyway, just in case Hundor did step in the way.
Yeah, he just wants the higher missing health heal out of that. That's what he's going for.
All right.
This is a really interesting game, just how much pressure we're seeing in the lane. At this stage, you know, a little bit later on here, it is very difficult, especially for Hundor, to do much for his team elsewhere. He kind of needs one more item. He's already got 3 big ones, but they're not the big damage ones. They're the big utility. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
He's still deal damage if you hit a Supernova like that.
Yeah, well, speaking of poke, Honda's doing a good job of it. Nice little reflex block there. Supernova does come through, and that will be the fountain used for Mouse. Gorglab ends up missing, but that means the Gauntlet will go down. 2 members stunned up. Phil pushing forward, but Hundor can't quite find it. Death from Above does come down, stuns him up, but the 2 support players are in the front line. The Dude's going to have to kite back, but falls together first with Keanu, and now Just Man, the only member left alive for Mouse. Hundor's going to chase him out. Can he pick up the kill? He's dip diving, dodging around that turret. Hundor quite finish him off, but that last auto attack will kill him. Ace for G2. Turret goes down as well.
Impressive plays there from G2. That fight started off and it looked scary for them. You know, Gauntlet came out. That was a big issue for them. 2 members got stunned up, but this composition is so good at turning a fight around and also so good at protecting a carry. You see Hundor's obviously the main focus of Apfel. He's on barely any health, but a great Divine Intervention does so much work there. And also, I'm the Doom really struggled to navigate around Keanu Nakoa. Keanu actually held on to that Holy Nova for a very, very long time, and that made it so that if I'm the Doom wanted to go from all the way on one side of Keanu to all the way on the other side to be in range of actually hitting Hundor, it was going to be pretty difficult for him to make that move without any kind of blink. You know, Kestrel doesn't have that sort of utility. So G2 esports, they played their comp really perfectly there. I do think that maybe initial positioning from Mousesports could have patched over some of those issues. Maybe, you know, if I'm the Doom had been a bit closer at the beginning of the fight, things look different there. But G2, very strong fight. They're actually sitting at a pretty substantial gold lead at this point.
Yeah, speaking of gold, 3 minutes and 30 seconds. G2 are 1,000 gold in the lead. You look at it now, you go, okay, 4,000, that's pretty big. You've got that turret, that's an added layer of pressure, and Hundor is getting pretty scary. Let's not lie to ourselves. Look at the items he's got. He's even got a clockwork now. This guy is hitting like a truck, and it's all up to Dark Potato and his Grace to just protect him. That divine intervention is kind of helped with a form of an Echo, which I can imagine what he's going to build now.
Yeah, Echo's got to be coming up soon for Keanu Nakoa. This is a composition where you're really leveraging one big threat, and so divine intervention echoed is actually more useful than it even usually is. So I'd like to see that for sure. Dark Potato, interestingly, has gone so far down the weapon path. I'm not sure he needed to commit this hard with the amount of damage that Hundor is going to be doing, but it has patched up that mid-game a lot for G2 when Hundor was still in the process of ramping up. It's actually an Atlas Pauldron as the next item for Keanu. This could be big if he manages to get it onto Apple.
Uh-oh, I'm the Doom stuck. There you go. There's the layering of CC, but Hundor's on the backline, receives a massive heal and is able to take out I'm the Doom. Just Man trying to kite away, has got Vanguard available in a couple of minutes, but G2 undeterred. Dark Potato chasing him out. His impales have just been on point.
They really have. That was about as good a situation as you could ask for I'm the Doom. He landed the trap. Didn't quite pan out, though, in the end. Hundor's healing onto him was just way too high.
Oh, the root! The double root. Solar Storm comes through as well. Just Man falls, and Dark Potato picks up the kill with the tension bow proc. G2 take the turret and take the lives of Mousesports. Now they're just sieging this base turret, AJ. This is looking all too bad. Oh, that was close. Use those flippers to get away. I'm the Doom trying to kite as much as he can, but that's going to be another turret. 2 for the price of 1 for G2 now. Look at that gold lead stretching now to 5,000.
That was dicey, you know, trying to hold turret there. I understand why you're doing it. You really don't want to give up that next turret because it pushes you all the way back to your choke point in terms of vision on the map. Really, really tough spot to be in. So it makes sense that they wanted to defend. The problem is, against Grace Lance, it's really, really dicey too. And even if you do, like, pick up the kill on Grace, let's say, it's very unlikely you're actually defending turret there. Hundor is just way too good at taking you down quickly at this stage. G2, they're convincingly in the lead. This is kind of echoing the sentiment that a lot of people had when I was talking to them, you know, backstage, getting ready for the event during rehearsal. You know, how's G2 going to show up at this event? A lot of people thought it was going to be really, really big for them.
You know, Tasty Bacon said it perfectly, didn't he? He thinks G2 is actually a really good match considering their placing, they're placing in seed. Dark Potato looking to go for something again. Does end up missing the impale this time. Does get stunned up by the active camo. Gauntlet comes down as well. Here goes the one-shot, one kill. Only striking Keanu. Does get stunned up, but Dark Potato willing to take the fight in the corner. Affel jumping on the back line again. Keanu using those boosts to get in. Another kill goes over to G2, and now once more, Mouse are on the run. Drinking health though, but that's a lot of damage. Can he find the kills? He gets a double with one glimmer shot. Mouse have turned it around. I'm the Doom's Kestrel is coming online. This could very well be a triple kill and an ace, but he's going to give it over to Just Man. True carry player. I'm the Doom. They're going to start Kraken now as well. What a turnaround.
Man, this game, the narratives are playing out as if we wrote it ahead of time, isn't it? I'm the Doom on the Kestrel. We talked about him being such a player to watch. He's really pulling it out. Those were some great glimmer shots towards the end. There's no way that this Kraken is going the way of G2. They cannot get there in time unless Hundor throws out a pretty crazy ultimate. Is he going to go for it, though? That's the question. I don't think you do. I think you just hold it for a fight. Yeah, he's not going to go for it.
Yeah, Kraken has been unleashed 15 minutes in. Gold lead still in G2's favor, but that Kraken is going to at least secure one turret, you can imagine. Now, how do they respond to this, AJ? They haven't even got that Echo online for Keanu. Maybe that's what they need in this matchup.
They needed that fight. I mean, if Dark Potato does get stunned up like he did at the beginning of the last fight, and you have to use Divine Intervention on him, that's obviously a huge tool not there for Hundor. And the thing is, you can't really anticipate Hundor not taking a lot of damage. Yeah, he's probably going to live if you have that, but if you don't, Apfel's going to be on him. And you just don't know how much that forward barrage is going to connect, how much damage he's going to be able to do in that situation. Nice damage back, though. Hundor, his poke's huge here.
Heliogenesis raining through, though, on the back of Mousesports. Whoa, that's a nice block there from above. Comes down, segregating the mares before them already. Hang on a second, Apple's already dead. So I'm the Doom, and now Just Man's in the front line. Takes the Solar Storm. They lose a turret, but they get the ace. They need to decide what they want to do, and they're going to take that Kraken.
They're just playing it safe. It's the first game of the Unified Live Championships, ladies and gentlemen. I think you play it safe here. You definitely don't want to get knocked out on day number 1. Let's talk about that fight, though. First things first, a lot of poke taken. As you saw that one kicking off, Hundor was landing a lot of those heliogeneses, doing some good work prior to things even beginning. And then, the big thing for me here is the kind of lineup that Mouse do. They take a lot of damage whilst grouped up, and actually a Surrey Strike into that, too. Really rough position to be in. I think that you needed to bail after that point. I'm the Doom wanted to keep things moving, and I personally think that was a very risky thing to do. Just leverage the fact that Kraken is threatening and back up. They can't chase you and deal with Kraken. You're going to get more maybe that way. As it stands, very back and forth game, though. Let's see if G2 can find a flank here.
Might just be able to. Genesis coming through. Apfel's going to dash back once again. Nice stun onto Keanu. Just Man has Gorna available. They're all in one tight nip corridor. One shot, one kill is going to come through. Divine Intervention healing up. I believe that was Dark Potato. Now Apfel alone. But it doesn't matter because he's doing a lot of damage.
Nice
That's
stun.
going to be a stun. There's the Gauntlet. It's not hitting anybody just yet. On the Doom still cutting back. Blink it now pass for G2. But Just Man's in the front line. Ends up going down. And now G2 pushing forward. Mouse on the wrong side of the base. Behind the Doom. He picks up a massive kill onto Just Man. Well, onto Hundor, sorry, not his own. He can't team kill. You can't team kill him, Vainglory. Keanu trying to find him, though. He's just going to escape. He's going to get spotted out by a flare, but they can't seem to do it. Only 1-for-1 traded. G2 can't make anything more.
Man, these players are looking great, Jaws. There were some really strong mechanics in that last fight. At the same time, though, you gotta be really careful about chasing down a Kestrel late into a fight when she's been out of the fight for a while. Active Camo did so much work there. Hundor, if he'd synced up with his team, like maybe if they believed in him a little bit more towards the end of that fight, they could have jumped in with the core collapse in Helio and it might have panned out. But as it stands, you know, again, back and forth game, G2 needs to reset a little bit. They got to be careful with these fights. They got to play around the strengths that that Mousesports has.
You just got to believe, AJ.
I believe
in the heart of the heroes.
He needs more help from his team. They need to believe in him too.
Well, they need to believe in him too. That is very true. But I mean, it's quite scary for G2 going up against Doom's Kestrel and Just Man's Arden, two heroes they're very well known for. Maybe looking for a little engage again near this mid-side. Kraken now on the board for both of these teams. This next Kraken, you can imagine actually G2, if they take this one, they might just be able to take the game. Only 2 turrets stand in their way of securing their first win.
I really like what Mousesports is doing here, though. They're pushing up the wave, they're forcing a response from G2, and in the meantime, able to get those active camo traps down, set up for any kind of fight that maybe G2 wants to pick here. Obviously, this late into the game, I'm the Doom. He's just perma-stealth. You know, he's not going to be seen unless a flare comes out. And if they keep this going, if they keep playing with G2 esports, especially if they were to keep control, and it's funny that they didn't, because if they keep control of the jungle shop there, you really punish G2 not engaging, right? Because you're going to run out of flares eventually. But here we go, Kraken attempts. This is bold from G2, very bold.
They got a lot of damage though, that's what you got to say. And look on the map, Apfel only just coming back to the Kraken.
Oh, it's
about half HP, Dark finds one. Oh dear, the chain CC again is just too much for them to handle. There's the Gauntlet stuns up too. Apfel needs to make something big here. Solar is going to miss him completely, but Just Man's going to go down. Double kill for Ondor, making his 9th of the game. Could be a triple kill, it is! Finds another ace, Kraken on the board, but they don't care, AJ. I think they're just going to go for the win.
I think you're right, Jaws. G2 probably doesn't need this Kraken to close things out. I mean, if they go too far and they're not quite as quick as they expect, make sure you identify that early enough and back up, because certainly I'm the Doom and his team could take them down afterwards. But that fight, man, I'm the Doom getting caught out so hard. Really rough position to be in.
20 minutes in, here we go. G2 just chunking those turrets out. There's nothing left standing in their way. I'm the Doom comes up, but that crystal is going to fall, and G2 will take the first win of the LA Unified Championships.
Very strong showing from G2, game number 1 here, Jaws. I'm very impressed by what they brought to the table. Mousesports looked good, though. I mean, a lot of people, I think, were saying, all right, Mousesports, they faltered a little bit in split number 2, so what Mousesports are we going to see at the championship? Have they been on their game? I think that they actually are. I just think G2 has really prepared strongly for the event. Compositions from both sides looked really tight. I like the fact that they're drafting well. It's something Mousesports fans got to be a fan of as well, right? Like, Mousesports hasn't always had the best drafts. Going into game number 2, I think keeping an eye out for what G2 is able to draft in the jungle going to be key for me. Absolutely.
The Kestrel seemed a little bit too much. I'm the Doom as his famous pick, but he managed to get hold of it. We're going to jump onto the desk. They're going to break that game down a little bit more.
What a way to start off the tournament. What an absolute bloodbath between these two teams. We are used to EU playing this slow, defensive, passive style, and we saw none of that in this first game. Brawling from start to end here. There were 7 kills before the 5-minute mark there.
Yeah, this was absolutely insane. This is what these European teams have been working on, and you can see it's paying off in spades. Both teams able to keep it close, but that was just so well played across the board, especially by G2, knowing their win condition, knowing, okay, as soon as we hit someone with an impale, all in on them until they are dead, and then move to the next target.
Yeah, and G2 played such a nice early game. They got 3 kills within the first 2.5 minutes, gave them a 1K gold lead, and they actually held that gold lead for the entire game, getting up to 4K, 6K gold lead by the 13-minute mark. And they had some really nice plays, especially at the 10:30 mark, where they turned around a nice gauntlet by Justman and got the ace and 2 objectives.
Yeah, and I think one of the key things across the course of this game was G2. It wasn't just one single standout player. All 3 of them played superbly.
Yeah, and they all played really well, but they played, this is their style. This is their signature way of playing the game, of the protect Hundor. You see Dark Potato, you had this Lance pick with a little bit of weapon power, but had another fountain. That second fountain was so crucial in those late game team fights to be able to keep G2 healthy and survive that burst that could come out from On the Doom.
Right, and Apple didn't look that comfortable. I mean, he was behind about 10 CS in the 8:20 mark. And if you look at how they're playing, Apple is focusing one of the carries, and On the Doom is not focusing that same carry. So I think Mousesports needs to really focus on their carry synergy here, and they need to focus the same target, like how Dark Potato and Hundor has done with the Lance and Celeste combos.
And I think when you mentioned the Lance and Celeste combo, right? The entire composition felt like it was perfectly drafted around that Kestrel first pick. They locked in Kestrel first, and suddenly you're going against this Lance that is more than happy to jump on the second you show up. He is going to be straight on top. And the Grace is there to protect your carry from being burst down.
Yeah, and we talked about the fact that they could have that maneuverability around the Lance, but we always see, you know, what it feels like Sky is a good pick in the Lance, but if Lance does happen to hit 1, and it only takes 1 once you get late enough in the game, 1 route is all it takes to just completely blow up that entire composition, and Dark Potato is one of the best Lance players, one of the most accurate impalers in the game.
His Lance is terrifying to watch. We have a fight that happened at 11 minutes into the game. This is where G2 really start to make their mark.
Yeah, this is such a nice play. Justman actually uses his fountain here. He then lands a beautiful gauntlet, and Sky needed to land her death from above. The combo needs to happen here. If they did, probably Mouse would have won this fight, but then G2 just beautifully turns it around. Dark Potato, he's landing all these roots onto a Sky that's so mobile. If you watch his Lance, his roots have just been on point.
Yeah, and one of the things about this Lance from Dark Potato is in that fight you can see he's more than happy to dive into that backline. While everyone's trying to focus Hundor, he's a significant damage threat as well. You can't just ignore this Lance on the front line.
Yeah, and only with 2 items. That's the craziest thing about it. 2 offensive items, because the base numbers are so good on Lance that you don't need to go for a 3-4 offensive item build. You can go with just 2 and then build those defensive items to help your team sustain.
What I love about that 10-minute mark was such a huge power spike. Hunter turned level 8 at the 9-minute mark, and they knew to push. They were playing really passive, and once they got their spike, G2 went, okay, let's put pressure, let's siege the turret, and they forced Mouse to make a mistake, and they took advantage of that mistake. So really nice play by G2 there.
They really capitalized, and it's a testament to the prep that they've done coming on into this. And I feel like once we got later on in the game, you have to give a shout out to I'm the Doom's Kestrel right here, because he had some phenomenal plays.
Yeah, you can see in this one, Dark Potato actually overextends, and for some reason, they're not focusing the Lance. Dark Potato is out of position, he's less than half health, but instead they try to rush Hundor. Again, it's Sky by herself.
Look at this,
and then Doom just carries this fight. He did it twice in this game. It was amazing that they were able to get an ace out of that misplay by Apple there.
And this is one of the reasons why we always talk about I'm the Doom's Kestrel and the top Kestrel players. And we saw Crystal Kestrel be played a lot and not really have as much success. And it's because of the positioning in the fight. It's very difficult to get active camos to activate partway through a fight, but he preemptively sets these active camos. You can see in this fight, you know, he's already been kind of cleaned up, but but he had those active camos in the right positions, even though they weren't able to be used.
Yeah, and that moment right there where Doom gets caught out at the end, that is a heartbreaking moment for Mouse fans at home.
And that's when I knew, like, the Kestrel Lance composition that G2 drafted was brilliant, and it just served to completely counter the Kestrel. And the Sky pick counters the Celeste, but it depends on which team can play their hard counters better, and G2 definitely played their composition a lot better here.
Yeah, one of the things about the Sky pick into the Celeste as well is when you've got a massive Lance and a Grace to body block all of the damage coming out, it's not as much of a counter because just the sheer amount of lockdown coming on in, it's just difficult to execute, and G2 showing an absolute masterclass in that first game of the series. I'm incredibly impressed by this showing so far.
Yeah, that's why I thought Mouse, Finn would have been a better pick. And let's see what they're going to change it. So G2 is going ahead and just take away the Sky and first pick that Catherine. So now Grace is still open. For some reason, Mousesports doesn't want to pick the Grace here, and then they might be picking up the same composition that G2 did against them.
I mean, to be fair, it makes a bit of sense to pick the Lance away from G2, even if they already have a captain, because you don't want Dark Potato to be getting his hands on that one again, especially if you pair it with a Merciless Pursuit, Impale, Merciless Pursuit, Githyan, Wulstan, you are just not going anywhere.
One of the things that we spoke to Mouse about yesterday was the fact that when they're going into their drafts, it's kind of, they take it by how it comes, right? It's not something that they prepare a draft strategy, they go and kind of feel it out. Do we feel like that is having a significant impact in this series so far?
Yeah, and I mean, I like the last game. G2 did what they were known for last season, actually. They picked 2 utility carries and then, or basically junglers, bruislers, or captain, and they give Hundor a hyper carry like they did before with Baron, but now it's just switching up to a CP mage. So Mousesports going ahead and deny the Celeste-Catherine combo. However, Celeste isn't the best into a Catherine, so this is a very interesting draft that's playing out so far.
Yeah, one thing we didn't mention as well is the Batiste ban was forced out by that Catherine pick as well, so it kind of opens up the pool for G2 in these second round of picks, having that ban go on to Batiste.
Yeah, we'll see if they do go for another bruiser in the jungle, and you know, we talked before the show started about the fact that the sort of crystal mages opens up the junglers for a bit of these beefier bruiser type heroes. And I feel like that's a really big strength for G2 because Dark Potato has always performed so incredibly well when he gets his hands on those bruiser type heroes. Blackfeather is one that can, again, be flexed either weapon or crystal. So we'll have to wait and see what they go with their last pick to see where we think the Blackfeather is going to end up.
I mean, Cruel would look pretty good here as long as the Blackfeather and a Cruel can get onto that Celeste with a Catherine.
I would be so worried about that for it being a triple melee, though. There's so many things that you can do to counter the triple melee. I don't think that would be a great idea.
Yeah, but I think with Blackfeather being so mobile, with his on point and his ultimates, he can dodge a Lance and just stick onto the Celeste, and it's going to give Celeste a really hard time. Top that you have a Cruel and a Catherine stun, but they're going ahead and go with the Samuel here and play the little range and poke game.
Which means it is going to be that weapon power Blackfeather by the looks of things, and we'll see how Mouse are going to react to this one because, you know, we discussed a little bit that triple melee composition. This is very much a different style now. Now that you got Blackfeather and a Samuel, a lot of it actually comes down to more poke-oriented style.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of poke with the Samuel, a lot of that counter engage. You know, try and get your opponents to chase into you a little bit, throw some Malice and Verdicts, and then once you're ready, Drifting Dart, Blast Tremor, Rose Offensive, and just try and blow your opponents up once they've overcommitted to a fight.
Yeah, what I like, I mean, Mousesports has a few options here. They can go with the Cruel as well, or they can do like a Jewel and do a triple lockdown composition with Celeste, Lance, and Jewel would be actually pretty solid into a Samuel.
They did say they have some tricks up their sleeves, so.
Yeah, they did. So let's see what they pick. With Cruel, a weapon power jungler looks good. Grace, they could do Grace with Celeste and Lance. That's actually would protect her with the Echo, etc.
They could literally take the composition
the same composition and play it against G2, which would work pretty well.
That would be an interesting turn of events. That would really be throwing down the gauntlet for G2, playing the exact same composition. I would love to see Mouse do that. It's going to be the Gruntjaw, though. That's interesting, considering Gruntjaw received some fairly hefty nerfs.
Yeah, I was not expecting to see Gruntjaw at all this weekend just because of those nerfs. Took away a lot of his durability and a lot of his early game powerhouse, which is where you want him, especially in a competition like this. You want to be able to win that early game extremely hard because once this goes late, I think it goes to G2 handedly.
Yeah, one thing though, Mousesports, if Gruntjaw gets Tangible Monaco, he still attacks pretty fast once he maxes his Hangry, and he does a lot of burst damage, so he can actually destroy a Blackfeather or a Samuel if they get too close to Celeste and the Gruntjaw.
So it's going to be a lot about positioning once again, but that is something that in that last game kind of crippled Doom. When we got towards the end of the game, his mispositioning was what lost him the first game in the series. So whether or not he's going to be able to call it out on this Grumpjaw. He was definitely the highlight player for Mouse. It definitely felt like I'm the Doom was kind of the linchpin of the team in that. Whether he died early and lost in the fight, or just went off on a man one and did a 1v3 and won the fight, he was definitely the star player.
Yeah, it's going to be fairly similar here. He's going to have to play a little bit more reserved though, because they have to protect the Celeste. But if he can, make the right decisions of when to go in, he can make some great plays.
We'll see whether he can live up to his reputation here on the Grumpjaw. It's time to get on into game 2 though, ladies and gentlemen, which means it's time once again to pass it back up to Jaws and Jackson.
Hey guys, game number 2, let's go. G2 already off to a flying start, but it's a Celeste now for Mouse. And this is looking like a very different draft on both sides.
Yeah, the Grumpjaw is a real interesting thing. I mean, the analysts were talking about it. It's not something we really expected to see a lot of. That being said, I'm pretty happy to see it. I like watching Grumpjaw. We've cast some great games. We've talked about the Grumpjaw damage before. It's not quite as insane as it was back then, Jaws, but it certainly is a very strong pickup. Now, what it might be able to do here that can be kind of key is maybe actually locking down, for example, the Catherine. If you can get on top of her, stop her from having that consistent stun, or maybe stop her from silencing at a critical point in the fight, that can be huge. If you can maybe time it when your Celeste is trying to unload a lot of her burst, that's big as well, because the shield is very, very good against Celeste. We've heard our analysts talking about it.
Yeah, there is a small audio issue with one of the players, so we'll be into game very, very shortly. While we sort that out, you get to listen to our beautiful voices, talk about Vainglory a little bit more. Now, that Catherine, I think Sweej mentioned it on the desk and said, over in EA, that was confusing almost. EA, they've been picking Catherine a lot. It's pick ban right now, and we're seeing it picked up by G2. Maybe they've seen some of their games and thinking, actually, it's pretty broken with Echo, with the Echo changes.
Yeah, to clarify, it's not being picked up in EA. It's been picking up a lot in the Western meta. And over in EA, it was actually not picked up hardly at all, if I recall correctly. So that was something that a lot of players were surprised by. On the down low, I think we've been hearing that it's just because they crucible it every time. But here we go. We're in a game.
Fast fingers. And you know what? Mouse will have to have those too as they step onto the fold once again. Game number 2. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Can G2 take it to match point, or Mouse, can they fight back? We'll have to wait and see. Let's have a look at Hundor and Atfeld to start off this game.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting lane matchup. Again, we've had that in both of the games so far now. Hundor and Atfeld definitely players of mine that I think you always want to keep your eye on. They're players who can really carry fights for their team and also build momentum by playing smart in the early game, not just safe. They know when they can go aggressive. Just Man being shut down on his invade there. I like how it's developed to a meta where the captains just go high 5 in the middle of the map and then back to their teammates.
It's good, I appreciate it. A little bit of sportsmanlike conduct, always quite nice. I'm going to be quite scared though. I'll tell you why. Dark Potato, he's on this Samuel now. That kiting potential away from Grumpjaw is going to be absolutely massive when he gets a Frostburn online.
It really can be. Look at this G2 already heading up to lane like they did last game. They are really good at putting pressure on early. That's what I'm starting to see from them. Their rotations are very tight. Mousesports, on the other hand, they've been doing a very good job of reacting to what G2's doing just purely by strong mechanics. All right. Mousesports. This is not a replay.
That is not a... This
They're
is
just
live.
heading in.
Yeah, we're getting a replay of the last couple of seconds. They are trying to contest some of this jungle though. Both level 2. Dark Potato only level 2 on G2's side. Keanu can't really find this though, but they are wrapping around here. Maybe going for the small recall, but being staggered, which is always quite nice, gives a lot of time up in the lane. And actually, Hundor is rotating down. Just Man, I'm the Doom, might be in a little bit of trouble. There's the dash forward to get a little bit of distance. Just Man doesn't have the roll just yet. There's the Madison Verdict's chunking him out a fair bit. Stun does land. They might just sacrifice him here. I think that's what they're going to do, and that'll be first blood once again over to G2.
Man, the mental game from G2, it shows itself as being very strong in even the smallest of moments. The way that Hundor approached that initiation, he didn't start with his slow because, well, maybe, by the time my teammates get there, it's going to have worn off. He didn't start by jumping on top.
Hang on a second, AJ. That just falls before your very eyes as Keanu just stun him up underneath the turret. Turret almost taking him down in response, but G2 find yet another kill. This is an exact mirror of what happened in game number 1. 3 kills by 3 minutes they had. They're already on pace.
Yeah, they're doing a great job here. And this is something that I was talking about when I mentioned the laners. I was saying, Hundor, Atful, these are both actually players who are very pace-setting. They don't just sit there and farm and use the lane to get a lot of gold and then become strong later on necessarily. If there's opportunities for them to make plays in the earlier stages of the game, they certainly will. And especially on the side of G2, as we're starting to see more and more here, they're a team where the jungle and the captain are great at setting those things up. Now, I'm the Doom. Oh, he gets it.
That was
He's gonna
close.
get that one.
He was trying to, well, Keanu was trying to interrupt it, but wasn't going to happen. He's only level 2 still, with Just Man being level 3s. Inching ahead in XP, always fairly important. And you know what, I've been thinking about this. I was on the plane over here and I thought, this match is actually quite important for another reason. G2, they beat an NA team, so Mouse came very close in London to beating Gangstars. Lest us forget, so maybe that's the secret sauce here. G2 just got that wider berth of experience. They've got that NA blood under their belts. And now Mouse, can they defeat them?
G2 as well. I mean, this is a team that has really proven themselves to be able to show up at live championships for that very reason. They did not have the best split, as we've mentioned a few times now, but they certainly seem like maybe it was a practice-related problem. I know for a fact that they were not practicing a ton in split number 1. They said they were going to really ramp up a little bit. I don't think they had the chance every single week, but it's been a couple of weeks since the end of the season. They've been going for it this time.
They want to fight. And the Doom has got Tension Bro. Beautiful stun coming out from Apfel, and Hundor's going to fall. Apfel takes the kill. Keanu using those boosts to get away. Is slowed up here, but Split's priority on who they wanted to take him down means Keanu gets out alive.
Yeah, really, really nice job getting out of that one, but unfortunately for Hundor, he's not going to escape. This is something that whenever you got a Lance Celeste style combat, I mean, there's a lot of crowd control. It's very, very difficult if you're out of position. This is something where, for example, the Catherine is maybe not the best captain at actually dealing with these early game fights that you can see, because she doesn't have group crowd control. She doesn't have the blast term until she's level 6. She's only able to lock down one person, and everyone is threatening right now in Mousesports.
Fountain almost online, though, for Keanu. Now, this is the moment in time where you've got to say, you just got to pin one person down. Apfel's going to be so vulnerable when Just Man and I and the Doom do go in to this all-in engage. Apfel, you can imagine, is going to be under a lot of pressure. Hundor's got a lot of mobility when he hits 6, which is on the horizon, and with that Serpent's Mask, he's got a lot of sustainability too. Dark Potato with that Oblivion being available right now, it's going to be easy pickings, really, if they can stun Apfel up. I'm the Doom. His damage is going to fall off later with this double monocle Tension Bow build, which what the desk mentioned. And even with these changes, it was a surprise, obviously, to see the Grumjaw.
Yeah, it really was. We've got maybe an initiation coming up here, though. Dark Potato does have Oblivion now. He spots someone, and they don't react quickly enough. Can really set up for the follow-up crowd control from Merciless Pursuit. I'm the Doom's also got stuffed, though. He wants to go for
stuffed. Keanu's taking the brunt of that damage, but that shield will help him out, reflecting a little bit of it. But Apfel is dealing a lot of damage back. Heliogenesis not completely online, not overdriven, but still just pumping out the damage. Classic I'm the Doom sitting in that top brush, or just classic Grumpjaw, I should say. Just being a bit of a sneaky beaver right now. Maybe wanted to go in for something after that Impale, but Just Man just cannot find him.
Yeah, Just Man not having quite the same level of success with those Impales that Dark Potato did last game. Obviously, Dark Potato very well known for his lance. We were talking about it before. Now, we're only 6.5 minutes into the game. Things have slowed down a lot, and the composition is worth noting, is not going to be as high octane as last game. We don't have Grace as well as a Lance in the jungle for one of these teams. We don't have that dynamic duo that can just pair up and go make something happen. It's much more nuanced. You know, for example, I'm the Doom can't necessarily initiate a fight like Grace can. He's got to rely on the Impale landing. So if Just Man's not hitting those, it's going to be tough. Item spikes wise, though, we have gotten to the point where a lot of those really rapid ganks that just quickly end someone and then you get away are off the table, perhaps with the fountains now picked up, as well as frostburns on both of the carries here. Sorry, not both of the carries, both of the mages across the two teams. That's great at really dissuading teams from committing to something they don't know for sure they can make work.
Well, and the Doom's damage is going to be almost cut in half. That Tension Bow, like you said, as soon as you pop that fountain, it's like, okay, where's your damage now? You're looking pretty hungry, but our health bars aren't falling too quickly. Now, Mouse, let's talk about them really quickly before I can imagine other fights come out, because they're going to push that turret pretty quickly. Just Man's the shot caller, and Apfel, this is his first time on stage. You got to think, oh, hang on a second, the fight comes through. Hunter's going to get stunned into another one. Oblivion comes down, he manages to dash away, though. Beautiful sleep behind the Doom is just going to devour him instead. Keanu comes through, still the Drifting Dart's going to come up big, and already, hang on a second, Hunter manages to pick up Apfel in the back line, but Dark Potato was in a lot of trouble. They trade 1-for-1, but Keanu, Hunter, they're not quite finished just yet. Rose offensive off cooldown in a couple of seconds. Just Man all alone, same with I'm the Doom. Hunter, he's got the slows, he's got the damage. I'm the Doom's going to come through. Just Man using that Impale to get a little bit of distance. Crystal Sentry coming up big, even eating some candy, is actually going to stop G2's advances.
This is dicey. Hunter, I like what he's doing though. He's going for this healing camp to try and make this trade a little bit more worthwhile. That almost was devastating for G2. I mean, the Mousesports initiation off the get-go was very good, but Hundor just barely survived. Somehow over the course of the fight, came back full health. You know, that's what a Serpent's Mask is going to do for you. A Fountain as well. Very, very nice stuff there. Dark Potato also, I mean, MVP for that Oblivion, managing to keep his teammate alive. This really keeps things on an even keel. Obviously, Untitled was able to pick up that return kill. Let's see if G2 can actually push their edge at all here, though. It's pretty difficult to shove this wave into a Celeste. Wave clear is very, very strong for her.
And with that overdriven Heliogenesis coming up soon. Oh,
Hundor.
crowd control. Hang on a second. Hundor's in a lot of trouble. Core collapse was good, and he's going to get stuffed as well. Dashing back towards that turret. The heals are going to come through, but Blast Tremor is going to silence them all up. Hundor has to get out of there, and he does manage to, at least for now. Heliogenesis to find the kill. Already one over to Mouse. Keanu, Dark Potato, they are segregated here, but Mouse, again, finding these pigs.
Yeah, that was a nice attempt at something there from G2. They tried to make the turnaround play, but a good Crucible blocks off the silence. That's the first thing. Second thing is probably one of the few times where the play of actually dashing under your turret with someone in your belly works. He was able to get back and really put Hundor in a very dicey position. The turret aggro was what eventually killed him, and that was key. So Mousesports, they've proven at this point, I think, that G2 are going to have to be much more picky about the pushes they make. You know, I mentioned it before, Celeste, very good wave clear. I think G2 maybe overstayed, you know, but given how far up they were, with no real wave backing them up, you got to wonder what they were achieving through that play. You know, they weren't actually putting pressure on in any real way. In fact, they gave an opportunity over to Mousesports. What I do think that maybe G2 could look for is a fight around an objective that isn't so heavily in favor of Mousesports, right? Like, if you want to fight around the gold miner, that's, I think, much more likely to yield success for G2 right now.
Well, item spikes are coming on board. That monocle has been finished from Mind the Doom a couple of fights ago. Crucible comes through, second item for Just Man. But Keanu, we spoke about it before, that Echo is going to be available to him very, very shortly. Mind the Doom on the sidelines here. Slow from the Frostburn. Hundor stepping forward, but he has got a lot of mobility. Actually just walking into Mind the Doom right now. The damage is really good, but can't really find anything right now. So the Storm does come through to tickle them on their way out. But G2, their mobility is all too much for Mouse and Andor right now.
Not having Grace on their team is really hurting G2 here as well. I'm sure they would have picked it if they had the option, just because of the fact that they cannot really find a way back into fights if they get poked out, and obviously Celeste is great at that.
Nice impale. There's the Blast Tremor actually just to disengage. G2 maybe pushing forward here. Just Man's health bar is very low, but Apple's is not. And the Doom might just follow this one up, dashes straight forward. Oblivion is going to come out, dodged out. Dark Potato almost falling to the Doom. Core Collapse not quite finding Keanu either. G2, they have to back off now, and that poke from Atfel, like you mentioned a couple of seconds ago, yep, a little bit too much to bear. Surrendering a lot of that damage. Oh, hang on a second, the stuff does come out, and a dash forward as well, using the Hangry. He's all alone, impaled into the wall, and that's another kill for Mouse. I'm the Doom securing it. That turret is next on the menu for them, but Hundor is going to be putting up a formidable defense.
Yeah, this is a composition from G2 that is much more about scaling than fighting early. You can really see it here. Obviously, Celeste is going to scale really well on Mousesports' side, but in the interim, just having I Am the Doom and Lance to patch over the early game is a great thing for Mousesports. If Keanu Nakoa hadn't died there, I wouldn't feel too bad about that play, though. I mean, they did deter a lot of the pressure from the turret, and that's kind of the most important thing here. That's how games snowball. Just getting a kill here and there isn't something which is really going to amount, especially if it's captain, isn't something that's necessarily going to amount to a tremendous lead for Mousesports. G2, I'd like to see better scout trap placement. That's one thing which might help a lot in this early game. For example, having a scout trap in that top bush would really hinder I'm the Doom's plays. He's made a play from that bush twice now. You gotta learn at some point that he's gonna be up there a lot of the time.
The way of the region is really hanging on their shoulders when they breach day 2, but G2 firmly in the lead right now. It's all about looking how far they've come as well to come all the way to LA. That's a long plane journey. Oh, yeah. AJ, a long plane journey. Hundor in a little bit of trouble though as he dives onto Atfel. There's the blast damage to silence them all up. Solar's Dawn's going to come through and a strike true. That's 3 members damaged. They're going to have to back off. Hangry used. Oblivion comes out as well. Can they find a sleep onto 2 people? But Keanu's going to fall. Atfel picking up another kill. Mousesports get the ace and they're going to find the turrets.
Very, very nice turnaround there. You saw Impale landing onto 3 people. That's obviously huge. It keeps them locked down for the area of effect damage that Apfel has. Tough situation to be in for G2 Esports, though. You can see right off the bat here, it's not as if they were poked down. In fact, Hundor initiated the fight, but he took so much poke before he even got anywhere because I'm the dude stutter stepping on him as he ran past was very, very good. Without Hundor pressuring Apfel, these fights are never going to go well for G2. That is Hundor's role and responsibility in these fights. But at this stage, not really tanky enough, doesn't really have the damage to pressure him. I wouldn't even mind maybe even a Shiver Steel pickup a little bit later on. You've got to be able to stick to him. You know, it's absolutely critical for Hundor here.
Oh, nice stun onto Just Man. G2 still looking for these fights, but Mouse, they're the ones to take them. Apfel's getting scary. It was like Hundor last game. He's just stacking up just with a few more kills in the early game. It was a 5k gold lead for G2 at this point in game number 1. Flips completely around with Mousesports with a 6,000 gold lead. It's game number 2, they're coming out fighting, strong face, even Apfel. First time on stage, there's a lot of nerves going through him, you can imagine, but stepping up to the plate.
This guy's one of the best Celestes of all time, though. I really think Apfel is a great, great player, so I'm not surprised to see him doing well here in game number 2. Now, items-wise, we've got to talk about a few power spikes here. Big one, of course, is the fact that Apfel just picked up a Broken Myth. That's huge.
It is pretty big, AJ. Thank you for pointing that out. Oh, Mousesports. They're just punishing G2's position right now. You can see them. They're too scared to approach. They know the damage is really there. That turret's going down very quickly. Hangry to get out of there. Does get stunned up by the Merciless Pursuit, but G2 now backing off. Hundor takes a lot of damage. A root as well does land. Blast Tremor comes out with the silence. War Treads is going to get popped to get them all out of the way. Apfel sends out that Stoner Storm. Hundor going really low. Oblivion completely missing, but now Under Doom is out of the fight. Now look at Hundor stunned up, locked up. See you later. Apfel picks up the kill, and that'll be another cool collapse. Just going a little bit wide, but Heliogenesis are good. And another Impale lands. Dark Potato, Keanu, they're so low, but Apfel finally takes it down for the double kill. And that will be the next turret you can going down, imagine. But Kraken's on the board, 15 minutes, perfectly timed fight.
That fight could very easily have swung the other way. I mean, there were some real moments of diciness there, one of which was Dark Potato playing very passively when I'm the Doom was forced to retreat, and Just Man and Apfel were teaming up onto Hundor. Going for a Kraken's actually a little bit bold here. Keanu Nako is still very healthy. The Kraken does do some good damage. We'll have to see if Keanu can get here, maybe steal it up.
He's going to go in for the stun. Core Collapse does land. Now they're focused on Kraken. They're going to go for the stun. Oh, they can't quite steal it. Oh, does get actually stuffed even. That Kraken buff's going to be a little bit too much for him to handle, you can imagine. There's another basic attack. Apfel will finish him off. That Kraken on the board for Mouse. Maybe this is going to go to game number 3 here. Well, obviously it's going to go to game number 3. It's the best of 5, but no match point for G2. They're Kraken on the board. Those turrets looking rather weak, and Mousesports just walking down the lane.
This is still a manageable defense for G2. Yes, they're very far behind, but their composition does need a lot more time to scale up than Mousesports, and they're starting to get there. We've got a Broken Myth on Dark Potato now. Maybe he can do the damage he needs to, especially in a scenario where Mousesports wait to pull the trigger. They need to go more quickly than slowly here. That way Dark Potato doesn't build up stacks, isn't able to just flip a switch and start doing some good damage. Breaking Point now picked up for Hundor as well. Let's see if Mouse can find that window.
Blast Tremor lands again. He's got no echo, so he won't be able to use that once more. Oh, he does have an echo. What am I talking about? There he goes straight in. And the dude's going to be the first casualty. A sleep does come through straight onto Just Man. That Oblivion striking him down, but that Kraken is still marching on their base. They need to make something happen now. They need to be able to find Apfel. They're still chasing. Kraken still knocking on the base doors. They find the ace, instantly go for the recall, but another turret is going to fall. The Kraken doing all the work for Mouse now.
I mean, that was definitely a fight that I expected G2 to win just based on the way Mousesports was positioning. But at the same time, an argument can be made that trading 3 kills for 2 turrets and good damage on the last turret is decent. It's going to be about whether or not G2 utilizes the money here. They did pick up some good items. We'll get to that in a second, though. Look at the way Mousesports is stacked against this wall here. It means they have to filter upwards around the corner, especially after I'm the Doom got stunned up there. And of course, you can Crucible 1 Blast Tremor, but if 2 come through, different story. The only way this fight could have gone better for G2, honestly, is if Apfel hadn't already started winding up the ultimate, you know, at the beginning of that one. Also, I did catch that core collapse at the end there, Apfel. Gonna be calling you out on that one. Not the time for that to come through in the way that it did. So look at the gold. Closed quite a bit here. Keanu picked up Atlas and War Treads off the back of that fight. Considering that positioning is huge here, War Treads is going to be massive, right? Also considering that I'm the Doom is doing a lot of work on the back line, really zoning. Atlas is going to be big as well. Let's see what this fight brings, though.
Oh, they're trying to cut back. G2 moving forward still. Apple left completely aligned. Hundor's going down really low. There come the War Treads out, and the Solar Storm's going to be good. Oh my goodness, that damage. Dark Potato finds himself going back to base. Hundor's going to get chased down. Mouse still can't find that finishing blow, but Atfil is just going to chase down Keanu. Core collapse is going to keep him at bay. Dash over the wall. Hundor doesn't stand a chance against two members. Mouse find the ace, and I think they're going to find the game.
Yeah, Mousesports managing to come back in game number 2 here, Jaws. Even up the series. I knew this one was going to be close. I wasn't sure how close. It turns out darn close. Man, Apple looking real good on that Celeste, barring that one core collapse. We can give everyone one of those, you know, it happens.
Everybody gets one. Mouse, they find that last turret. They find the Vein of Crystal. It will fall. And Mouse, they take revenge on G2, taking the second game and evening this up to a 1-0.
They're looking pretty pumped up after that one as well, and I don't blame them. You know, game number 1, yeah, G2 took home the win, but it was very close all throughout. I have to admit, that game 2 was much more in Mousesports' ballpark throughout its entirety, and they had a better pace-setting lineup. I think the lineup G2 had was somewhat greedy, right? You know, you're really saying, we're going to push for late game, we're going to take this one all the way, and then start to ramp up, and they nearly did, but it wasn't quite enough.
Wasn't. 2 now. The NA Slayers are going to get taken down by Mousesport. 1-1 apiece to both teams right now. This is going to go the distance, I feel. And I'll tell you who has a little bit more insight. It's Joe and the boys on the desk.
Thank you very much, guys. We will be hoping to spread some insight on this one. I don't know if we can say it's going the distance just yet, Jaws. Still at least another couple of games to go. But we have evened things up here. Mousesports making their mark on the series. They are not going to roll over and die. And it has to be said, I'm the Doom, making Grumpjaw look viable again. I think it's fair to say.
I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong. I did not think Grumpjaw would see any play or be any sort of impact at this tournament, but that was a great showing for this Grumpjaw pick. Didn't have the massive early game dominance that we normally see, but this was the composition it was picked into was the key. There wasn't a great way to strip away those living armor stacks off of a Grumpjaw on this composition from G2.
One of the key things about this game is it started well for G2 once again. We're starting to see really good early pro activity from G2, Suijo.
Yeah, and you can see once Celeste scales, and honestly, the story is Apple is playing so much better, so much more confident. He was 20 CS ahead of Hundor this game at the 11-minute mark, and that was a tale of two stories in game 1 and now game 2. So you can see whichever carry gets ahead, normally is going to determine the outcome of this match, and Apple definitely performed a lot better. Maybe it's a live stage, he has the experience now, he's confident, and they actually focused a lot better as a team as well, with Justman, I'm the Doom, and Apple focusing down Hundor when he would go in and try to dive.
See, that was going to be my next question is this a matter of Apple just being more comfortable on Celeste, or is this a matter of, okay, I'm a game in now, we're getting used to the stage just a little bit and kind of getting the feel of the tournament in general?
I feel like it was a little bit of both, because you're going to have those nerves, you're going to have that little bit of uncomfortability on the stage for your first time, but then Apple is a player that has been known for Celeste. We know him for Crystal heroes in the lane. He's been very strong on them. You know, we talked about it. The teams, certain teams getting buffs from Crystal Mages being relevant again, and Mousesports was one of those teams because this is Apfel's comfort zone.
Yeah, and then once we got further on into the game, we started to see Mouse really take control of the situation. Yes, G2 had a good start. They had a bit of a glimmer, I hope, later on, but there was multiple fights where Mouse were just able to run away with things. And I mean, what was happening in those fights? It feels like Lance is an absolutely pivotal pick right now in the meta.
Yeah, I mean, Lance and the fact that in the early and mid game, the silencers were blocked and they were able to counter engage. And Hundor usually would engage alone, and Samuel can't really dive with Hundor. So they needed to land key silencers. And when they did land silencers or got it done and focus the same target, G2 would win these fights. And that's what they needed to do. There is another fight where Keanu lands 2 silences, but they don't focus the front line. They try to overly commit on Apple because they want to just kill the Celeste. And I think with a composition like Catherine and her ability to lock someone down, they need to focus whoever Catherine and Samuel is hitting.
Yeah, they need to just be focused on one target. That was the one fight that G2 managed to win for themselves, but then we got into this fight, and this was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, you can see there, Hundor is initiating, but Samuel has his drifting dark, but he's not hitting anybody. They need to fight with that drifting dark up. That is their win condition, and they're not playing to it. Hundor then gets focused, he gets really low, and Black Feather weapon cannot beat a Grumpjaw tension bow with double monocle and a lance supporting him.
It was also a great job of target focus by Mousesports. Hundor went in, they all went onto Hundor. He got himself out of harm's way because Black Feather is very slippery, but they didn't chase. They didn't try and overcommit on him because they knew, okay, if he wants to try and stay in this fight, the only way he gets sustained is by coming back into us, and once he does that, we can blow him up. So they don't bother chasing him. They know that he's removed from the fight, he's no longer a factor, and they can turn their attention to the other carry on the team.
All right, so now, based on only these two games, it feels to me like the meta right now is much more relevant to team fighting, to making things happen and being proactive. Do we feel like that's a matter of like Lance being in the meta? Do we think that that's the kind of situation? Or do we think this is the team stepping up and realizing they have to be more proactive in general?
Yeah, I think this is Mouse stepping up and understanding how their comp works and comboing better than G2. I mean, you look at G2, they have a silence, they have a Samuel Oblivion sleep. You can combo both of those with the double silence. That's a sleep, silence, silence. Combo that and execute your combo and you win the fight. You see last game, game 1, Mousesports failed to execute the gauntlet stun with the Sky Death from above. They were not comboing well and they lost that game. So I felt like Mousesports stepped it up and G2 stepped it back.
Yeah, so now looking towards this next draft then, obviously we've had two fairly different results in terms of the draft, and Celeste has won both of these games so far. Celeste feeling incredibly strong on this current patch.
Yeah.
Are we expecting this to start to be maybe one of these first bans that you just start to not allow through once we get later in the weekend?
I don't think we're going to see Celeste start becoming a priority ban. I think it will still be a very heavily picked hero, but there are counters out there. Like there exist counters to this Celeste. I think the Lance is one that we may see start to become one of those priority bans though, because Lance can just set up so many combos. The reason why the Celeste is so strong partially is because of the Lance play, because if you land a root, you land a Githian wall, that is now a free core collapse that you're going to be landing onto your opponents as well. Lance just sets up so many combos.
So then are we going to see a similar situation like with Catherine and Baptiste, where you can never allow Lance and Celeste to be on the same team together?
Yeah, and that's why when they first picked Catherine, the Baptiste was banned immediately, because that's such a great combo that can CC when done properly, and that's why you see, you know, Baptiste is normally banned or not given to the team once a team has Catherine. I'm very interested to see why Grace is not prioritized in Europe here. Grace is still very strong with the Echo buff. Her ult was nerfed, but still very viable when the team can focus and dive a specific carry. So it's very interesting to see that right now, from what I've seen, Grace is not a big priority, but Lance is.
We are going to get that Celeste ban though, because the Lance is there. G2 take away that option for the combo, so we'll see what Mousesports wants to prevent. It is going to be the Lyra ban, so Grace is available. I would love to see Grace come through, but like you said, we just, for some reason, you know, we had the similar situation with Lyra Grace in Europe during the regular season where they put this priority on Arden over the Lyra or the Grace, and it seems like they've kind of pushed that Grace even further down now.
It's going to be interesting to see how we go on with this draft. Lyra will be taken off the board, but I'm intrigued by the Kestrel-Lance interaction once again, because we saw in game 1 Kestrel against Lance, and the second one of those roots was landed. Kestrel is totally out of the game.
Yeah, and plus Glaive is open, so if G2 doesn't take Glaive, then that's so risky for them if Mousesports gets a Glaive and a Lance, which is the counter to, and I love the Finn pick here. Keanu is so good on Finn. I was hoping they would pick Finn because Finn is good into Lance. He's known as a late game, mid game to late game counter, because Lance cannot displace him with the Githian wall. Finn can't be stunned, etc. So it's a great pick coming off from G2 here. And if they pick a Glaive, it's risky because Finn is so good at countering the Glaive and keeping the Glaive off of a Kestrel, for example. So Mousesports may opt for the Glaive here still. He's still such a great combo with a Lance and an Afterburn being played together there.
We'll see where they do go with this one. Obviously, Mousesports going with the double pick now. They can completely round out their composition. Scarf will be locked in. This is something we saw almost exclusively in the jungle in the regular season. But here on Update 2.7, it's something we've started to see lean towards the lane.
Yeah, it can go into either of those roles. So right now they have a lot of options with their third pick. They could look for a captain, they could go for a jungler, or a hyper late game carry to go with the Scarf and just really try and focus on that late game, which is, you know, again, kind of fall back to the familiarity of the European style of play. But I would be very surprised if they went for a double late game carry just because of the fact that, you know, it's with a Lance, you want to have a little bit more early game pressure.
And also, you're here at an international event. You cannot fall back into your comfort zone. You have to be pushing your boundaries and making your mark and figuring out this meta before you get into the North American games tomorrow. Let's remember, whoever wins this goes on to tomorrow, goes up against a North American team. You want to be able to show that you're a team to be reckoned with.
I do like the Black Feather, lots of mobility, able to get past the Finn and onto the back line. If you can get past the Finn, then Finn can't really help protect his team anymore because you are too quick and your opponents are going to have to run backwards and you can chase with them. Finn cannot keep up, so being able to dive onto the back line is very, very strong.
Yeah, with what's available, I think Vox makes a lot of sense here because he can dance around the Spitfire with his Sonic Zoom, and also he's good into Lance because of his mobility. To dodge the roots as well. So with the CP Kestrel and a Vox, they could make this work. And Echo on the Finn, which will be very interesting late game. And yep, the Vox will be picked here. So now this composition, I feel, is pretty even because Scarf is so strong in the late game. Yet G2 has such a strong power spike in the mid game with the Finn level 6 there.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. And one of the key things as well is we've already been talking about how proactive G2 has been in these early games. If they can get to the mid game and really abuse that power spike, they have shown in game 1 of this series that they can easily run away with things. And this time, they've got the Kestrel on their side. So no I'm the Doom shenanigans stopping them towards the middle of the game. We'll see whether they can run away with things. How are we feeling about the compositions, Bacon? What's the win conditions coming up?
The win condition for the side of G2 is going to be all about just making sure that they keep the Scarf in check. They have to make sure that focus the Scarf down, you know, use the Force to Court to try and just pull 1 or 2 members. You do not want to pull the entire team because that will spell disaster.
We'll see whether they're going to be able to use that Force to Court correctly. I want to remind you guys as well how important this series is for G2 right here. Last season, they were the only European team to take a series off a North American team. This season, they come in as the 6th seed, but they still have the opportunity to go against North America if they can win this series. We'll find out whether they can get another game on the board, but Mouse are not going to make it easy for them. Let's pass it back up to our casters.
Thank you very much, Munch. Here we go. Game number 3, Mousesports versus G2. Both of them 1 point on the board now, but very different drafts coming out from both of them this time.
Yeah, this is actually pretty interesting. The Scarf is definitely a pick that I'm curious about. It is another mage, and mages do seem to be pretty good on Update 2.7. We've seen Celeste do some serious work up until this point. But at the same time, it is a very different kind of mage. You know, Celeste, it tends to be able to do a little bit more in the early and mid game. She has crowd control in the form of core collapse. That can really be a big point in the mid game, and especially when you're going up against Finn and Vox and this Kestrel too. You know, these are compositions that can fight early. Scarf might have a tough time there.
Oh, here we go. Jumping onto the fold. Game number 3, G2 on the red side, Mouse over on the blue. Again, the little love taps from both captains to start us off.
Yep, this is becoming pretty standard stuff. I'm a big fan of it. I like to say hi to my opponents as I head on the fold. But let's actually focus on some of this other... Oh, I like the nice charm there.
Yeah, the little charm going on. All right. I can appreciate that.
All right, let's shift our focus to some of the things we got to keep our eyes on now. One thing definitely worth keeping our eyes on here. We talked about the fact that, you know, on Update 2.6, we actually saw a decent amount of Scarf in the jungle. It was pretty strong at times, especially in Europe. It was just good work. But now, Apple's actually taking this up to the lane. It is going to farm a lot faster. You know, it's going to be able to get a lot more gold a lot more quickly, but it is going to be a bit slower in other ways.
Oh, it's also really annoying as he does chunk down Hundor with that Spitfire and the Gloop. Now Mouse looking for the rotation here. Dark Potato obviously alone, and they know this. He only was up in that lane. Dark Potato doesn't manage to steal it. But on the Doom and Just Man maybe going for these backs instead. Small little minions, kind of rotating as well. Dark Potato, he has got the range advantage, at least for the time being. It's the polite company to get with a 45 HP, but Mouse just happy to slink away with only 1 cap.
Yeah, they were able to pick up that back camp, which does give a lot of gold. 150 early is nothing to sniff at. Dark Potato is flanking. Not a lot of energy for him. Oh, he picks it up.
Yeah, he
Only
does.
needs the one. Now he's got the regen too.
He's got level 3, but he does get rooted. Not much energy
Nice
left
stun.
on him. Nice stun into the wall. I'm the Duke going forward, but Dark Potato secures the first blood with a glimmer shot. Atfel coming down to try and make something more of this, but Dark Potato managing to walk away. Blinking health bar, but first blood over to G2.
Beautiful turnaround from G2 Esports. I mean, everything landed there from Mouse, so it was simply a miscalculation in how much they were going to be able to do. Maybe they thought Apfel was going to rotate a little bit more quickly. That's kind of the only way they'd get any more out of that play. But as it stands, you know, G2, that was a series of pretty fortunate events. When you're 1 versus 2 in the jungle and your captain's off helping your laner, you don't really expect to be able to get 2 treants in that exchange. You know, you kind of expect to lose that backhand and maybe a treant. Then on top of getting the treant, they actually get a kill as well. They waste a lot of Mousesports' time. G2 off to a really, really nice start as a result. Let's see, maybe Mouse can pick up a little bit of slack here and get some more camps.
Some fortunate route landing onto Justman. Just stepped a little bit too far forward, and that treant pays him a little visit. Now, Atfel, at the moment, he has been bullying Hundor, but Hundor's managed to farm, well, keep even on farm, at least for the moment. Mouse now rotating towards the lane. They are going to get spotted out. Justman going in. Pretty easy one to predict for Hundor. Mechanical God on this Vox. Quibble not stunning just yet, not overdriven, but again, a lot of poke coming out for G2, and that's going to be their name of the game, it seems.
Yeah, that was some nice turnaround damage from both sides, actually. Apfel doing a lot of work early on with that goop. But of course, Hundor also managed to get a lot of basic attacks in there. Early attack speed. This game is fairly even so far. I mean, yes, that was a nice play from G2 to react to Mousesports' initiation, but at the same time, they weren't able to get anything, you know, particularly of their own off the back of them. They weren't able to go into the fade because it was, you know, it was all the way in their jungle. They actually fought. Now with the shop on the map, though, I am curious to see what items get picked up. Dark Potato has a lot of money in the bank right now, and if he actually goes into the enemy's bush here, he might cut off on the Doom.
Got a lot of cash.
No, he's not going to go for it.
He's got a lot of dollar on him. He's working towards that shatter glass. Is that not what you call it over here? Dollar?
It is. Yeah. All right, so Dark Potato, yep, he's going to pick up the items you were expecting. I'm Doom clearing out some scout traps here. Curiously, both of the laners actually just recalling there, neither one feeling confident enough with their captain and their jungler to make their way down to the jungle shop. We've got power spikes all across the board, really. I mean, Poison Shiv on Hundor, we've got the Fountain on Justman, Frostburn on Apfel. I do feel like, you know, G2, they spike a little bit earlier in this game. They have a little bit more raw power in the mid-game, especially when Keanu hits 6, but even still, with things like that Poison Shiv build, does do a lot of good work early on. You see there, pretty quick, you know, an average time here for Ryan the Doom. He gets those tier 3 items really fast.
Yeah, he does. All the farming prowess, but with that death, maybe that sets him back a little bit, but he is working towards a couple of items here. In fact, Sorrowblade might be the case, but you can imagine it's going to be a Serpent Smart. Nice route onto Dark Potato. In fact, Justman has to hightail it out of there using those boots, although Atfel is going to meet them. Not level 6, no Dragon's Breath. That one-shot, one kill is going to hurt. More tickle at the moment. Justman still wanted to chase him. I'm the Doom is going to... Oh, hang on a second. He's just going to jump on him. That Crystal Sentry there. Fountain already used. Hundor's actually on a 1v2 situation right now, but he's making it work. Justman going very low. G2 still moving forward. Quibble's really good. Hits 2 members. Atfel using that goop, using that Spitfire, but I'm the Doom's already in the back line. Takes out Dark Potato. They are just going to trade 1-for-1, but Justman's going to fall, and that will leave Atfel, the lonely dragon, to walk away from this one. Keanu chasing him away, but that will be 2 kills now over to G2, and they're both on Hundor.
Very, very nice stuff from both teams there, but obviously G2 coming out just ahead. Hundor right at the end, he was inches away from being hit by that impale. He actually stopped moving. He was in the process of moving into it. So, you know, as a prediction from Justman, but he managed to stop himself. Very, very nice stuff. I like the fact that he just straight up went for the 1v2, whilst I'm the Doom was tumbling so hard onto Dark Potato. Of course, I'm the Doom doing some good damage here, though. He's gone for a different build than we saw last game from that Black Feather. He's actually going for a Starblade first in the Serpent's Mask. I kind of like that. It gives him a bit more skirmishing power when it comes to just bursting down the, you know, either of the relatively squishy carries on the side of G2 Esports. And with the amount of flares they're buying, they're finding a lot of windows.
Nice impale, another Githian wall as well. I'm the Doom just cuts him where he stands. And again, Dark Potato falls down to the flare of Justman. Keanu now and Hundor, they are retreating underneath their turret, but Atfel's got the level 6. It's siege time now for Mouse.
Yeah, these flares have been doing a lot of work from Mousesports. G2 does need to be very careful, specifically Dark Potato, especially when his boots aren't on cooldown and he doesn't have a captain near him. that's the kind of time where Mouse is going to do some hunting. They know the cooldowns. They can see the fact that the captain is in the jungle. So obviously there's a good window of opportunity to try and get onto I'm the Doom. Thankfully, Dark Potato is doing a really good job of sniping away these camps whenever the Black Feather comes by, trying to get a drive-by steal. It is keeping things relatively even. One shot, one kill. Oh, it connects! Look at the damage, man!
All right, App fell. He's going to have to brush that one off rather fast. Almost went down to the one-shot, one-kill across the map, like you said. G2 now, focusing this Goldminer. Goldminer actually, unless we missed it, wasn't actually taken or prioritized by either of these teams. There was just too much fighting in the last couple of games to really make it an objective worth going for. We'll pick it up, and that's 250 gold to each member. It's a big gold boost for them. 1,000 in the lead at 7 minutes.
You know, we were looking at that average build time earlier. It was like 6:23 for your first tier 3. Yeah, that's cool. But you got 2 tier 3s on Hundor by 7:30. So he's really putting up a good fight here farm-wise, managing to get a lot of money. He's actually slightly behind in farm compared to Apple. But as a weapon carry, especially as a Fox, the earlier gold kind of translates to a little bit more for him. Good
forced a cord straight into the Polite Company, and the Glimmer Shot will finish him off. Just Man, I'm the Doom, using those boots to get away. Rose offensive out. And he will just separate himself from Just Man, so the bounce doesn't connect. G2 now with a kill. Oh, no, it's not their Dark Potato, unfortunately. They are going to put a lot of damage down to this tier 1 turret, though.
Yeah, I think they're actually taking this tier 1 turret. They have plenty of damage for it. Just Man does get a very nice double stun, but it's only going to be buying a little bit of time here. Thankfully for him, there's no forced accord to follow up the turret take with potentially a kill. G2 Esports, they're finding a lot of small windows here to really just pressure onto Mousesports. Mousesports has been the ones trying to set the tempo, but if you don't do it right, sometimes that just puts you in the wrong position, puts you in a position where you can't defend properly. Hundor's got to be careful, he's next to a wall.
Impale does end up going down, and yet deleted already. Mousesports, they find him, like you said, next to a door is not where you want to be, especially against Just Man's Lance. Now Dark Potato, he's got the ability to anti-siege, taking Just Man very, very low, and Apfel going fairly low as well.
Yeah, thankfully for Hundor, Dark Potato is here to cover over that misplay a little bit. There really wasn't any option for Mousesports to push into a Kestrel who's doing that much damage. Now, this all being said, Dark Potato has basically no energy regeneration compared to what he needs to play like that. So he is going to have to be taking treants and playing a little bit slow until he picks up maybe tier 2 regeneration items.
Now, what's interesting, we mentioned it in game number 1, is that G2, when they're practiced, you can easily see why they are such a formidable force. And maybe the season before, yeah, they weren't practicing as much, and we know that through just talking to the players, and maybe this is what it took. Just a little bit more practice time, a bit more time on the books. Now, they're really showing why EU is not a region you want to mess with.
You know, in Europe, we don't really have a team that has the same legacy as like DNZO and Immortals had.
Pale does land Piano, but he's just going to walk that one up. Hondor taking that fortified HP. Doom is actually going down very low, cuts him down where he stands. That regeneration's nothing for those mortal wounds. Dark Potato with the 1v1 as well. Apfel's going to fall. Just Man goes down as well. Hondor with a double. The ace for G2, and they're going to push on to this next turret.
Very nice stuff from G2. Mousesports going that far up right now. I mean, they were almost at the tier 1 turret of G2 Esports when they don't have a tier 1 tower and they are the later game team and they are behind. Strategically, that's a curious decision for them to be making. It results in an ace, another turret picked up. This is how games snowball out of control. G2 Esports look great right now. Got a replay coming up. Let's have a look at that fight again. See how close Mousesports are to a very extended position here. They think they found a pick, but Dark Potato's on the back line to really stop Apple from being able to do damage. When Apple's not doing damage, and it's just Black Feather who's not got a lot of defensive items right now, Hundor and Kelly definitely deal with it. You know, it's not a situation where they can't handle the initiation out of I'm the Doom. It's not like a Kosh who's just going to go in and instantly fix it.
That's who they're dealing with, is I'm the Doom. He's got so much regeneration in his kit and with that Serpent Sparks, but right now, Hundor is just tearing through him. He's got that Poison Shiv to apply the mortal wound. And I'm the Doom just cannot find these fights that he really wants to. He can't solo out Dark Potato. He can't solo out Hundor. There's too much protection from this Finn pick as well. Sweet J seems to really like this Finn, and I can definitely see why. It's working out an absolute treat. However, Mouse still pushing forward. Apfel still has that Dragon Spell. We haven't actually seen him use it just yet. He's actually gone down more often than not before he can pop the cooldown.
Let's see if there's an angle here that Mousesports can maybe take. Hundor's playing with fire on the front line, literally, as Apple tries to land the Spitfires. If one connects, things look a bit different.
Bruce Ball a little bit late. Polite Company to slow them up. Darkdare's going to get jumped on. That's going to be a massive Dragon's Breath as well. If he can get it off. Nice route, but it's not going to matter. They trade 1-for-1. Doom's very, very low in the back line, but Keanu, Hundor, they're taking a little bit too much damage. Hundor just going forward, stepping a little bit too far. And the Doom cuts him down when they on point. The gold miner goes over, and that's an ace for Mouse.
Beautiful from Mousesports. Really, really excellent positioning. They toyed with G2 a little bit at the beginning of that fight. They gave the impression that they were in a worse position than they actually were. You can see it here. Keanu thinks he's found a tasty little morsel there with that forced accord, but of course, you know, the follow-up is there. I'm the Doom at this stage with a beautiful Rose offensive just barely edges out of the fight, and all this time Apple's winding up Dragon's Breath. Later on, it's possible for G2 to make that fight still happen if Goop does not connect when it does, but the slow is ridiculous. Hundor had no way of dodging out and kiting I'm the Doom once that came through. Now, we've got a game on our hands, Jaws. Things are much closer off the back of that fight.
13 minutes, this is the closest they've been at this mark. Only 2,000 gold separates them right now. And in fact, speaking of gold, I've never seen or heard the tiny gold payout collected before. There's only 83 gold apiece, but hey, it's still gold, because a couple of minions, or at least a camp each, so it's not too bad. Not too bad. They at least got one on the board. That's the most important thing. But Mouse, they're still down a turret in this situation. Down 2 turrets, sorry. So G2, it's really their game to pressure now. They've got 1 turret down, yes, but the issue is, if they hit another one of those forced accords, it could be all over, especially if they tag Apfel.
Yeah, Mousesports needs to be very careful, but they are on the fringes of making it to the later stage of the game, which they're really looking for here with that Scarf and Black Feather. Itemization-wise, I think you could actually make the argument that Apfel is kind of already there. What they really need more than anything for Mousesports to power spike properly and be able to take fights to G2, I think is slightly more defensive itemization on on I'm the Doom, because as it stands, if they actually land crowd control onto him and it's not just damage, it's going to look a lot different than the last fight.
Oh, forced accord, this time it's going to get blocked. Doesn't mean they're going to be hand-delivered. Keanu just refusing to give this one up. Just though Quibble doesn't have to adjust, man. That's a lot of poke from the Glimmer shots coming out from a Dark Potato. I'm the Doom looking for a sneaky flank, but G2 sniffing out before anything can happen. Ooh, Dark Potato beginning to hurt now.
We've got a one-shot, one-kill up in a couple of seconds here, Jaws.
Hang on a second. They know one person's back, so Keanu's actually going to push forward. Dark Potato can't take too much damage, though. Not too many defensive items. In fact, no defensive items underneath his belt. 2 Shatterglass and a Clockwork. The standard Kestrel build does a lot of damage, but if you get hit by one of those Spitfires, your health bar is just going to disappear.
G2 should honestly reset here. It's 30 seconds till Kraken. You lose a fight. I mean, it's really tragic in this position. So there's no real need to push the tempo the way that they are just because I'm the Doom's off the map. You know, Dark Potato doesn't have enough energy to really make it happen. Keanu doesn't have forced accord for quite some time, even still 20 seconds off of that one. So definitely just playing it safe, getting all of your cooldowns back up. Makes a lot of sense to me. We do see I'm the Doom trying to peek his head in here, nearly connecting that slow on the Hundor.
Dark Potato doing a lot. Whoops-a-daisy. I didn't go which way you wanted to go, as you can hear the crowd sigh a little bit. We all saw it, buddy. I'm sorry.
He just had to try and outdo Apple in every way after that core collapse.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's quite a short cooldown, though. It's only 10 seconds remaining, so you can brush that one off. It's not going to cost you too much, but don't want to look for a fight.
It was a warning shot.
That's true. I want to shot the other way, they couldn't even see.
All right, so we got an Atlas Pauldron picked up now for Keanu and Nakoa. That's going to be very useful against I'm the Doom if he's able to land that. Very, very strong stuff. Also pretty good against Scarf if you land it just because of the perk. I mean, it's not something that's, you could say it's a slight perk. All right, so now we've also got a Crystal Infusion on Just Man. Obviously, that's going to give him some slightly better crowd control in these initiations. I think that's going to be pretty important because Hundor, honestly, his responsibility in this game is kind of interesting. When you've got 2 ranged carries like this, but one of them is a Vox, you frequently see the Vox playing kind of up in fights, trying to make things happen to maybe zone out Apfel a little bit, because you can't give him a ton of space. But at the same time, he does need to be very mindful, especially fighting the jungle, of these choke points.
That went the right way.
Githian walls.
Nope. Forced accord, so now G2 still pushing on at Fel. He does have the Eve of Harvest, so he's going to get a bit of regeneration when he hits a skill shot. Now G2 still pushing. This has been the tail. This is the Kraken dance now that they're initiating. Who's the lead? It seems to be G2 right now. Swinging Mousesports around, especially with poking out those Glimmer shots. It's going to hurt a fair bit. Just Man looking for an opening, but still can't find it, it seems.
I like that Keanu's playing more of a point man for his team right now. That one
hang on a second. One shot going a little bit wide, but still a lot of damage there. Goes on the back line already, trying to dive into Hundor, but it's not going to matter. It seems Dragon Bed's going to get charged up. They trade 1-for-1 right now, but that's going to be G2 taking the lead in this fight once again. Apfel is going to fall. G2, they take the ace, they're going to take the Kraken, and they're going to take the base.
Man, I got to admire Hundor for being able to keep his cool in some really scary situations. In that fight, he was actually able to do enough damage onto I'm the Doom when I'm the Doom thought he was going to get the kill, that it really messed with I'm the Doom's ability to be effective in the fight. You can see it in just a second here. They sort of see a window of opportunity. Hundor's chunked very low. They try and dive onto him, but he gets a great reflex block, and the entire time he's just stutter stepping, getting all the attacks in that he needs to. Apfel also very hard committed for the kill. Onto Dark Potato there. I appreciate, needing to be effective and get something done there, but at the same time, he extended so far that there was no way that wasn't turning into an ace for G2. Now they've got a Kraken on the board. This is what they really needed to maybe seal the deal, maybe push in here and take game number 2.
0.74. That is the rate at which G2 get Krakens per game. Still pushing on. Forced to call. Apfel's the perfect targets. Has used their boots to get away. G2, they're going to be able to crack the base now. That turret going down. Keanu comes through with a massive quibble onto 2 members. 1 shot, 1 kill is going to snake its way through Mouse, but Kraken is still looming on the base. This could be match point for G2. They are chunking out those turrets rather heavily. There's going to be a beautiful stun onto Hundor. He's going to get slowed up, but it's not going to matter. A massive, massive active camo stun coming through for Dark Potato. Apfel's going to charge up that Dragon's Bath. It's a lot of damage. He does manage to take out 1, but they still need to deal with that Kraken. Hundor is now straight on top of him. Yep, that'll be G2. They're going to fall to the ace. The Quibble dealing with a little bit, well, giving them a little bit more time. And ace comes through, but that Kraken still is going to take both turrets of Mousesports space. They're left with nothing now.
Mousesports really needs to appreciate just how lucky they are that the game isn't over right now. Couple of big misplays. First things first, Hundor walking near the wall at the beginning of that fight. He's done that a couple of times this game. Sometimes it makes more sense to disengage fully and then come back in than try and walk that line where you're in range to attack, but you're in a bad position. You can see it here. He really tried to go around the bottom when his team was not on the same wavelength, trying to go up towards the top. Now, they did have a good turnaround at the beginning. Finding that first kill was nice, but Dark Potato was way too far away without a reload. He wasn't ready to actually reinitiate that one, so Hundor needed to try and stay on Apfel with the rest of his team. Otherwise, that wasn't going to pan out. So some communication errors there. I'd like to say that maybe it's no big deal for G2. I mean, they have taken every turret on the map. But honestly, with the composition that Mousesports is running, that's the kind of fight they needed to just come back swinging, come back in a position where they can now start dealing some real damage. You're seeing Apfel start to get some defense items. That one shot did way less damage than the one we saw earlier on. They've got more utility on their side. I think Mousesports, if they play this next fight correctly, could actually just straight up come back because of how late in the game we are now.
We are approaching that 20-minute mark, and speaking of Apfel, the first time on stage, let me reiterate, this guy, not seeming to show nerves at all. His positioning has been absolutely stellar with the Dragon's Breath. Able to 2v1 at certain situations. Force to Cord is going to get blocked, but Mouse still looks forward. And Echo comes out, and another Force to Cord. Apfel still in the back line, use those boosts to get away. They're still trying to pin him down. Dragon's Breath is going to rain through 4 members of G2, but Dark Potato completely in the clear. There comes the Fountain out, a nice heal, but Just Man's in a 1v2 against the 2 carries. Not where you want to be. They take 1, they take 2. I'm the Doom running away with no health bar remaining. I think this is going to be AJ G2. They might just take the base.
Oh, absolutely. There's no way I'm the Doom is defending this by himself. If he manages it, I will be incredibly impressed. But G2 here, especially with Dark Potato's stealth, really should be able to lock this one in.
Well, he's going to go in regardless. You've got to at least put up a little bit of a fight. Dark Potato going very low. They're just focusing down the Vein Crystal right now. Dark Potato just gets the nice stun off of him. Active camo into a Quibble. Ace for G2 and match point on the board for them.
Very nice stuff from Keanu Nakoa at the end. They're actually timing that Quibble right for the dash in that I'm the Doom was doing. Really solid game from G2. That actually looked, I think, better than their Game 1 performance overall. Couple of patchy spots still. I think this is a team that definitely has great drafts, definitely has great strategic minds. Mechanically, they're very, very good, but I do think Mousesports has the edge there. They're just not finding the right opportunities in some of these games.
Yeah, we spoke about how mechanically gifted Mousesports are, but you can't just rely on mechanics like you just said. G2 seem to have the whole package. Do you know who else is a whole package? The desk. Tasty bacon. All the boys, they can take it away.
Thank you very much, guys. I don't know if I 100% agree with that one, Jackson. I feel like G2 are looking pretty damn good right now, managing to take a second game in this series. 2-1 now in their favor. This one was a little bit of a different game from what we've seen in the first two, though, because this was much more slow-paced in the early game. We didn't really see much action for the first sort of 5 minutes, which, you know, in the first two games of this series, we've seen them going toe-to-toe the entire time here.
Yeah, for sure, and you can see why the Finn pick worked so well. G2's Keanu's Finn is just known to be so strong, and it worked out really fair. And they played their composition to how they wanted to. Basically, Finn just protects them, body blocks, Keshro just pokes, and whoever dies, they then focus on that person. And you can see once Vox had his build, he was able to then hard carry and just basically kill Blackfeather or Lance, whoever was in Vox's way. Keshro and Vox would just focus down and destroy.
And I was a little iffy about this draft from G2 just because of the fact that in the regular season, Hundor on Vox was 1-6. It is not the best of performances, but definitely has been working to improve on that play. Looked so much better in this game. There were multiple fights where he was saving the Sonic Zoom until the goop came out, specifically so he could get himself off of that massive source of damage and continue to output his own damage in these fights.
And you can see him just sidestepping a route there coming out from Lance as well. Definitely great play coming out from Hundor. And honestly, for the side of G2, Hundor has been an absolute highlight player. His mechanics are just superb so far this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, he played his Vox so well, and he just didn't overcommit in like other games. Like he was on his Blackfeather, for example. And Mousesports is kind of playing similar to game one. Someone would overcommit, like Doom would overcommit and then get focused down, or Scarf would be out of position and get pulled. And they didn't build properly too to counter the enemy composition. Like you need to get a reflex block if your captain does not have a Crucible. I mean, these are things that you need to do to counter the power spikes of your enemy team.
Yeah, and also avoid things like the Lance. Like we've mentioned already a few times today, when that Lance is coming for you, if you don't have a reflex block available and you get locked down, you are going to be deleted immediately. Let's take a look at some of the fights that happened towards the later stages of the game as well, because this is where things got really interesting.
Yeah, this is, again, where we get to see the positioning a lot from Hundor and from Apfel, and just how the Force Accords are being used. This fight, it pretty much doesn't even have an effect because there's so much movement on the side of G2 that they were able to force the side of Mousesports to have to try and engage onto them, but they were really almost baiting them into those active camo traps that Dark Potato was setting down.
Yeah, for sure. And you can see where in this situation, Apfel was able to hard carry because he gets a nice dragon, but he gets 2 kills and he has 6+ stacks of Broken Myth. And Scarf just does so much damage, and that was what they needed to do. They needed not to commit and dive past the Finn to get onto Keshro. Just let Scarf play the poke game, get your Broken Myth stacks, and then commit to the fight. But a lot of times you see Doom miss pull, Justman miss blocks. Doom would go in, get focused, and they would get low. And then the Dragon's Breath with 2 Broken Myth stacks isn't going to do as much than 9 Broken Myth stacks, for example.
Yeah, it's always going to be the question, and we've talked before about the interactions between Finn and Scarf, how yes, he is going to block a lot of the poke, but if the fight goes on for a long, long time, he's also a great target to just build up those Broken Myth stacks, and then that Dragon's Breath can just destroy health bars. In the end, G2 are going to take this one 2-1 now in this series, so they are feeling confident, but also they are on the cusp of moving on into day 2. Mousesports, the higher seed, seed 3 coming into this series. They're against the ropes now. Things are starting to, the pressure is starting to build. With players like Apfel, very new to the stage, do we feel like this pressure is going to start to be a detriment to their play? Do we feel like their play is still at the same level it was on the victory, or do we feel like this is more composition, more down to execution here?
Yeah, I think it's more composition. I think they excel at combos that make sense for them. They need to fight together. Doom cannot be overextending. Apfel cannot be out of position. When they're both on the same page, Mouseport plays extremely well against G2, and so likewise can be said for G2. So I feel like they need to make sure that they have a combo that works. Like, although Lance was great with Blackfeather and Scarf, that's not a lot of CC that than say like a Lance and a Cruel, for example. So I feel like they need to draft compositions that combo really, really well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and that's kind of the story for both of these teams as well. I mean, one of the first things we talked about with G2 today was the fact that they love to run with these combo comps, where they love to collide these ultimates together and turn that into a team fight victory. We'll see if that's something that they're going to be able to bring into Game 4. Let's start to talk about the draft then, because it definitely feels like Lance, he has been a huge factor across the course of this series. He's been 100% picked so far. Obviously, it's only been 3 games, but Catherine and Idris, they have been within the first 2 picks or bans every single time. Idris, we haven't seen on the fold just yet.
Yeah, and because he's so strong, he can go weapon or CP, and CP Idris is actually one of the best, if not the best lane carry right now. They're going to go ahead with a Lance. So does Mousesports, and I think Justman, yeah, he has played Finn in the previous seasons and this past season, and he's played it really well. So I think Finn would be a really good pick into a Lance composition. Again, the meta just shifts. Finn was not really popular, but if Lance starts popping out again, then you can then play Finn into it. But instead, they're going to go ahead and secure the Lyra and ban away the Grace. So they deny G2 that Grace-Lance combo.
It's interesting because neither of these teams have put any sort of emphasis on the Grace.
Right.
So I'm not even sure if they would have gone for the Grace had it been available to them, but not going to be an option this time around. But it does also leave open a lot of options now for Mousesports, because G2 is going to have to just focus on one of those bans. There's multiple things that can work well with a Lyra. Could see a Samuel come out, especially with the Kestrel taken.
I believe they're going to probably take Celeste here, because if they give Celeste over to G2, that's going to be a Celeste, Glaive, Cruel, Grumpjaw, Lance combo, and that's a pretty dangerous combination to have.
When you've got all of those heroes on your side, you've only got 3 on your side. Like, on a serious note, though, the Kestrel being taken away, I think, is very interesting and very respectful of the likes of Mousesports. It basically says, you know, we can't afford to give the Doom Kestrel at this late stage in this series. We need to win this game, so let's take that one away for ourselves.
Yeah, and so now it's going to be putting a lot of thought for Mousesports into this pick. It is going to be that Celeste, again, not wanting to allow the Lance-Celeste combo to go over to G2. So now they can change things up, but they can easily take a Scarf for themselves, or they can try and hard counter the Celeste.
They can do Cruel with Lance and Scarf with Glaive. I mean, they have so many options because Lyra is not good into a really good CC composition that can combo with the Lance composition, for example. So that's why I feel like Lyra might work if they abuse the early game here, but mid game to late game with Lance CC along with another hero like a Cruel or a Grumpjaw or a Glaive is going to work really well with a CP carrier that they pick for most likely a Scarf or even potentially a Dagio, but we'll see what is going to come out here. Oh, they're going to go with Sky actually, so this is probably a weapon Sky, I believe, or could be CP, but let's see the other pick.
And we saw Sky used earlier to try and be the counter to the Celeste. Wasn't able to pick up the victory, but now it's going to be on the other side of the fold.
The key thing is that last time Sky was against the Lance, and we kept on seeing beautiful routes come out from Keanu to lock that down. This time, it's on the same side as the Lance, so maybe if it is that weapon power Sky, we'll be able to move around a little bit more.
Sky Feather composition. Sky Feather is coming back. That was a dominant composition way back a few updates ago, so it's great to see that back in action. And Black Feather has been a very popular pick, but so far all the teams that have played the Black Feather on the teams have lost in the past 4 games.
So talk to me about this Sky Feather comp then, because, you know, I'm someone who's not that old within the Vainglory community. Like, what does this composition excel at?
Yeah, basically Lance CCs and then Sky's able to then put a lot of damage onto whoever is in the front line. And then Black Feather has his on point and Rose offensive. And then his Feint of Heart is what comes in. When a carry has 50% or less health, his Feint of Heart does 20% missing health damage, plus has a 20% weapon ratio on that Feint of Heart. So if he has a Soar Blade, a Breaking Point, and it has stacks, he can do literally 1,000+ damage if a carry is like down to 10% or 20% health.
So we're going back to 2.6 a little bit here for Mousesports with this Vox pickup. Likely to end up being the Celeste going into the jungle with the Lyra as the captain. Mousesports is going to have to, it's going to be very difficult for them because they have a late game composition that they need to be aggressive with. Like Vox and Celeste want to be hanging back, but winning this is going to be shutting down the mobility, and the only way they do that is by portaling in with a Lyra and immediately throwing down the Bright Bulwark. So this composition, it's going to be so difficult to execute with, and I don't know if they're going to be able to pull it off.
Well, we'll have to see. They're certainly backs against the ropes right now. They're 1 loss away from being knocked out of the tournament. We'll see whether this jungle Celeste will be enough for them to take this one to a 5th game. It's time to pass it over to our casters, potentially for the last time in this series, as it's G2 up against Mousesports.
Thank you very much, Munch. Yes, you are right. We're back once again, and match points for G2. Mousesports are looking pretty dicey. Maybe this is the nerves finally getting to them.
So one criticism I think a lot of people have had of Mouse over the season is that their drafts are sometimes a little interesting, sometimes a little wacky. This is definitely an older school kind of draft from Mousesports, and I think maybe they're going back to comfort a little bit. I do wonder how it's going to pan out against the really robust composition that G2 has to offer here. I think that G2's composition is going to be very, very effective.
You should hope so. That's what you draft compositions for, correct? Here we go. Could be the fourth and final game for G2. They do manage to take the win over Mousesports. We're jumping straight onto the fold. Match point, and now it is all in the hands of Mousesports.
All right, so let's have a look at some of the lanes and things here. We've got Vox up against Sky in lane. Now, if this was a Crystal Power Sky, I definitely feel a little differently here, but as it currently stands, I think this is going to be a very bruisery lane. I think both of them are able to put some good damage down onto each other. The big advantage that the Sky has is the massive movement speed spikes you get from your perk. It really does let you get into position to harass quite a lot. That being said, you're farming pretty much exclusively with basic attacks, so bounces coming in from Apfel will land. Yeah, you're not CP, so those bounces aren't the main source of the Vox's damage, but they are a very strong source of incidental damage that will make Hundor's life a little bit more difficult, probably force him to rely on regeneration items a little bit.
I think Dark Potato has really been the standout performer for G2 throughout this whole series. Now, on this Black Feather, already popped back for his third Crystal Bits. Now, this is going to be a very, very easy early game, you've got to imagine. It does take a little while for that box to scale up. Same with that Celeste. If they can take advantage of that early, it's going to be smooth sailing for G2.
Yeah, Hundor is thanking his lucky stars here that he's on 2.7. I think those Halcyon Potions and the frequency with which he's able to heal up probably a little bit more valuable to the weapon Sky than our new item. Let's see if he's able to actually sustain enough against Apfel, though, who's doing a good job of pushing the lane, even with the captain for G2, counting Nikola staying up there. Dark Potato's got to be careful as well and invade.
Oh, wow. Oh. Double root does land. That's pretty big, Just Man. They are in a little bit of trouble. Githimwall does not hit. Core collapsed onto two people. Under Dune going very low, and Dark Potato will execute him on the spot. Just Man managing to secure the kill backwards, though. And now Keanu is on the run. You can't imagine that as support. Just Man or Captain Just Man isn't going to be able to do too much on that Lyra, so they just end up parting ways.
Not a bad trade for the side of G2. Obviously, First Blood gold is something nice to have. They got to be careful on the lane, though, and really respect the damage that Apfel on Vox, something he's very well known for, by the way. Plus that Lyra perk can do. It is very, very scary stuff. Hundor, once he picks up a couple of items, should be in a better spot, though. I am curious to see what build he goes. Back in the day, kind of the only weapon Sky build used to be Sarblade and the Breaking Point. But nowadays, I do think it wouldn't be unreasonable to throw in a poison shift somewhere. You do need some sustain, especially in this lane matchup. It's a cheap item. You need attack speed to pop your perk quickly. There's a lot of reasons why it might be good if you can find a nice little window for it here. Yeah,
Mortal Wound's going to be pretty good as well, especially versus that Lyra heal. Lyra is the first time we've seen it thus far in these games over the past three. Now Keanu, Dark Potato, they are here. Get the Githimwall off. Dark Potato's going to stick to his target, but Bright Bulwark is going to dissuade him. Now G2 on the run. Doom is just chasing them down. He's got a lot of damage, triple crystal bit, and a bit of extra to bang for his buck. Now Dark Potato on the run. Now G2, what do they do in this situation? Starting to come online, but the problem is Dark Potato just cannot seem to find his mark on Doom.
You know, it's a really rough situation to be in the jungle here if you don't get the jump on Mousesports, because as soon as you're on the run, you know, the Lyra slow plus Helios, it makes it much easier for the Helios to land. And of course, they do a lot of damage even early game. It's just that they're kind of harder to connect with the lower range prior to your overdrive. Now, we are seeing a breaking point first from Apfel. This is kind of interesting. I do expect the fights to go long, so he's probably going to get a decent number of stacks. That being said, I'm not 100% convinced it's the best first item he could be going for here. This is very old school of him.
Old school. We might be seeing him tomorrow.
Very likely.
Oh yes. Oh yes we do, as we stretch into NA later on today, in day number 2. Now G2. We've got one apiece right now, but the thing is, when do they start to come online? That's the big question, because, yeah, you said Apfel, these fights are going to be a little bit longer But with this breaking point, that's going to stack up rather quickly. When does G2 actually hit that mark?
So for G2, they're really looking for the item pairing for Hundor. That's when the weapon sky really gets out of control. It's decent with one item. It can certainly put up a good fight, but with two, it really starts to get scary. Also for Dark Potato, really needs to finish off at least one so that his burst is putting him on the map here. Every single member of Mousesports is very squishy. I mean, Lyra's base stats are low, then you got 2 carries backing her up. This does mean that the execution offering the Dark Potato brings to the table here could actually be very, very relevant, especially if Hundor is able to Surrey Strike onto the back line, hunt down a target that he softens up, and potentially get out of there just based on the high movement speed that he has.
Rifle one used, Core Collapse dodged out though. There's the fountain for the heal. Atfel using those boosts, another fountain does come out. A beautiful route lands on Doom, and he will be going down to that Impale when the on point. G2 find a kill, but what can they find after this? Atfel is very low.
The movement speed there from Hundor really did a lot of work, got him out of position pretty quickly. Obviously, Surrey Strike, a strong tool as well. Kiani wants the flank here. I don't know if they're going to be able to jump on Apfel too easily, though. Got to be careful of turret aggro.
Yeah, Rose offensive out. Atfel going very low. Surrey Strike will actually just finish him off. Kianu taking the majority of that turret aggro. Juggling the turret aggro extremely important. We're able to find another kill. Damage down to about half HP on that turret now, or its life, I should say. And now Mouse, they are playing on this back foot. They need to wait for Celeste to scale.
Yeah, this is actually a little rough, though, because ideally, I think with the Lyra and the Vox, and also the Celeste in the jungle to a certain extent, you do have opportunities to make things happen earlier on, and there haven't really been many of those for Mousesports, partially due to the builds that they're going, partially due to the way in which they're trying to play and the places that they're trying to put pressure on. I definitely think G2 is stronger in the early game, but there's windows for Mousesports. Now, off the back of these 3 kills, yeah, it's a small gold lead, but there is a noticeable one for G2, and they can continue to apply pressure. Shattered Glass first, actually, coming in from behind the Doom, should patch over a few of the weaknesses, so long as the fights don't go too long. But, I mean, Mousesports kind of want fights to go long, because they've got breaking point already on Apfel. It's a little disconnected, I think, some of the build paths they're going for here.
Now, we normally do see the Frostburn for the kiting potential, and then we see something like Shattered Glass. But right now, they're a little bit too scared. They just want the damage. Atfel dodging forward, but again, there is a fair bit of mobility on Atfel, so it's going to be hard to lock down. Dark Potato takes a fair bit of damage from those traps, but other than that, I mean, it's just a stalemate right now. It's just the dance, and the regeneration war is going to be won by Mouse here with just Man doing a lot of that healing.
I understand wanting to go for the Shattered Glass, though, as a jungle Celeste here. You don't quite make the same amount of money in the jungle as you do in the lane, and every point of that, or every coin of that gold needs to be spent on something that's really going to matter in the long run. Part of the reason why you see some builds like we saw in Game 1 actually from Celeste, where you go like Frostburn, Clockwork, Eve of Harvest, your first 3 items, and you can get away with it, is because you're going to get the gold that you need. You're going to get the priority farm on your team. You're going to get what you require to actually hit damage to amplify the utility of those items. But if you're in the jungle, who knows, what is going to be required if I'm to Doom this game. Maybe he gets to farm the jungle a decent amount and gets close to lane gold, but maybe he doesn't. Maybe he has to teamfight. Maybe he has to react to the pressure that G2's putting on, or they're just going to lose in lane, lose turrets. So getting something that is definitely going to be effective in pure damage, which is obviously the main responsibility of Celeste, makes a lot of sense.
Atfel picking up another big item here as well in that monocle with the infusion.
There's the 2-item power spike. G2 Esports, I would not be surprised to see them go in very, very quickly off the back of that. They've even got an infusion on Hundor too. His damage is going to be crazy.
Well, speaking of fights, Kianu moving forward. Does get the Gimpian wall up, but that's a lot of Heliogenesis damage already. Fountain used for G2. That silence is a little bit off, but does run into it in the end. Nice use of the Crucible there to block the Impale, and now another Crucible is going to come through, or at least Fountain even, for Mouse to heal them all up. Poke is just too much for G2 to handle, it seems, and Mouse actually win that trade.
Yeah, they're a little lucky too. Also, Dark Potato still, the trade's still going a little bit. He does have the ability of edging in and out of the fight and keeping pressure on just with on point. Hundor took a little too much damage at the beginning there. Better positioning, and that fight almost certainly goes away of G2. Now, this is the kind of window that Mousesports really needs to abuse. They need to find opportunity, like I'm the Doom is doing, to farm safely, knowing that they're not going to be pushed in. They need to make sure that Apfel gets all this wave. If they allow themselves to be pushed around by G2,
Hundor in the 1v1, they just trade straight up. That Resonance Bounce does end up finishing him off after he went down first. Now it's just the supports to fight.
Who needs a Crucible shield for your carry?
Oh no, not me.
Just Man
says Just Man.
Yeah, that definitely could have gone a little bit differently. I don't think you necessarily expect the turnaround damage there to be so high, though. Apfel was doing some serious work at the beginning of that trade. G2 Esports have an edge in the lane, though, off the back of that. Maybe they can start shoving in a little bit. If they can burn a decent amount of energy, even, from Celeste, that's something notable, given the build that she's gone for. Here comes Hondor.
And the Doom taking a lot of damage from those on points. Hondor is here. There goes another death from above. It's going to get blocked, but Doom's already out of there. On point does finish the kill, but Apfel managing to get Hondor down as well. Now Mouse, they do trade 1-for-1, and Just Man doing so much harass work, and Apfel now, he's really starting to come online with this monocle, just putting out so much damage.
Crits are real good when your opponent has no armor. That was disgusting damage out of Apfel onto Hondor. He can't be feeling good about that. This is kind of the responsibility of a Vox that we were talking about last game, where they play in a weird place on the map. You know, they don't play on the far back line, they don't play on the far front line, they play kind of in the middle.
Solar Storm's good. Keanu just walks into it. Wait for it, goes a little bit wide. That was so close, but Apfel goes down, overstepped, and Dark Potato takes his mark.
Wow. That must feel really scary. It's like, all right, I'm just going to go for a little bit of harass. Whoa, is this Solar Storm coming from? Very scary stuff. But in the end, it actually works out pretty well for G2. They're able to pick up a kill there. On to Apfel of all people. Definitely the best person to take down. Taking him off the map slows down his gold gain. That's something you want to be doing. We have an Atlas Pauldron now on Just Man. If he can land that, it's huge here. Obviously, you know, both for getting up stacks of the Blackfeather perk and for locking down just the pure damage that Hondor is doing. It does make a lot of stuff happen. Let's see what the next item is going to be here as well. Hondor, I think, is going towards probably a Tyrant's Monocle, I would assume, as the next item. That is going to be doing a lot of work for him. We do have an Eve of Harvest now for I'm the Doom. Again, every item this Celeste picks up really does mean a lot here, given the fact that she's jungle. Doesn't have the same gold gain. It's going to be a tougher time hitting a third item. I like going for the Eve over Frostburn second, actually, for that reason. I think it's going to do more for you in the longer stages of the game. And certainly, you know, against Hondor, who's doing a lot of damage, you got to have some way of sustaining a little bit. Do have a Tyrant's Monocle picked up for Apfel here, slightly ahead of Hondor in itemization. If they pick up fight, could be big. That's going to be the infusion used, so they certainly want to.
Keanu going in, does get the double impale, but it's not going to match. The bright wall comes through. Massive Stoner Sword picks up one. I'm the Doom just slaughters G2. Keanu just dashing away. Apfel, can he find? And they're just going to take the turret in the meantime. Dashing forward, last bounce.
What is that?
Doesn't end up hitting. Keanu once more, surviving with sub 50 HP.
I don't understand. He's like 4 stacks of breaking points. He's chunking him so hard. People need to buy, I mean, he's got armor. Keanu has armor too. This doesn't make any sense to us. This is ridiculous. All right, well, Mousesports, they've managed to find a really good window here. Picking up a gold mine, obviously great. It's going to be a decent payout at the very least.
Gold payout collected.
Nice spot to be in. I do think, though, that Hondor's positioning is the thing I've got to critique the most for G2 here. If you're able to maybe turn and lock down Apfel, at this point, I think it might be more valuable than diving I'm the Doom. I feel like they're in the mentality of earlier where Apfel was actually playing the Celeste, and they were like, okay, we got to lock this guy down. He's a carry Celeste, crazy damage. Right now, yes, Celeste is doing some work. Absolutely. But Apfel is the one really making the highlight reel plays happen for Mousesports, and G2 has the ability to get on top of him. They're just not prioritizing it, or they're prioritizing on the Doom thinking they're in a good position, and then Apfel flanks. That's what we saw in that last fight. So Apfel's playing very well, but at the same time, G2, got to keep your eyes peeled, got to find that main target.
Just maybe going for a little flank here. They did take the gold mine, mind you, so Mouse, they are up in gold right now. Just under 2,000 exactly. Nice double stun into the Impale Prime Wall. It's going to dissuade them, though. That's going to be a massive Solar Storm again, and the Apfel just wrecking them. G2, they're falling left, right, and center. As soon as Apfel gets going, Doom and Just Man are going to chase Dark Potato up, refusing to let him go away. Core Collapse does go a little bit wide. Doom, you can't step that far forward. Dark Potato goes back in. Wait for it's going to silence him, and that'll be an ace for Mouse.
Jebaited.
Oh, absolutely jebaited ace. Mouse takes a turret, and they're going to take the base.
All right, well, Mousesports, they are looking real good right now. It's very difficult for Hondor to get angles here. It's just not panning out. He keeps getting stunned up. He keeps getting locked down. Solar Storm keeps connecting. I mean, he just spawned. He's already dead. That's going to give away another turret here. Mousesports look unstoppable in this game. People expected this to be a close series. I expected this to be a close. I did not expect it to be this close, Jaws. This is ridiculous. Let's have a look at that replay. You can see at the beginning of the fight, Mousesports look actually like they're in a pretty dicey position right against the wall. But there was a great stun onto Hondor. There was a lot of lockdown onto Dark Potato as well. They weren't able to use the window of opportunity that Keanu Nakoa gave them. They weren't able to do anything during that stun. As a result, they just turn up the heat right afterwards. Mousesports turns and burns.
turns and burns. That's exactly what's happening in this series. Back and forth at the moment. G2 on that match point, but Mouse pretty happy to bring this to them. Maybe bring this to a 5th game. We'll have to wait and find out. I mean, Apfel, you said it, and I'm going to repeat. Kind of repeat what you just, what echo your sentiments even, is a better phrase. This guy has not got any nerves at all. It seems like he's just chilling out, playing at home. I know a couple of the G2 members play with their feet up, but Apfel is playing with his feet up right now. He's 6-3, double monocle. He's got breaking point. The bounces are just too much. Like you said, Crit's so good against so little armor that G2 have.
Do find him here, though.
Have found him.
Time.
Core Collapse is going to dissuade them. There's a big heal. Nice double root, though. But Justman's already found himself into the fight. The Bright Bulwark is going to hold them up. But hang on a second. Hundor is still alive, but Solarstall finishes them off. Doom with those Heliogenesis is going to be able to find the double. Apfel with another 2 kills on the board. Hundor just escaping. This Sky just can't do much. Not when you've got the burst damage from Doom.
Honestly, Apfel's just filling Hundor's role better right now. Very mobile weapon carry, similar kind of build, all about ramping up through the fight. Look at how quickly Kraken is going down. The damage out of Mousesports is just obscene at this point. There's no way that G2 steals this. There's only 2 turrets left on the board. Jaws, I really don't see a way that G2 Esports comes back into this game unless Mousesports really slips up, and they've not been showing a propensity for that, at least in this game.
Well, there's only 2 turrets remaining, and that Kraken, you can imagine, is going to take 1. You see, their Kraken per match is even lower than G2's. Mouse sitting at 0.62 Krakens per match.
To be fair, it was match 3 when we saw that.
True. That could have changed. It would have done. Here we go. Engage from G2. However, look at the damage already onto Dark Potato. He's going to go very low. That's the big damage from Apfel. He's going to go down almost, but no, the heal comes out just in front of Justman. Hundor tried to go for the 1v1, but it turned out that G2, they weren't a match, and this might just be the end of the game.
It is definitely going to be the end of the game, Jaws. Apfel was barely able to stay alive at the end there. Good discipline on the trigger finger from Justman on the fountain. This is a 5-game series, Series 1 of the Unified Live Championship. I couldn't have asked for a better way to kick things off today.
Exactly that. What a better way to kick things off. Game number 5, Mousesports, they take the win over G2. Justman just throwing up a little bit of swag there as well.
Yeah, they're feeling good. I don't blame them after that performance. I do not blame them at all. I felt like compositionally, there's a big edge for G2, but that Vox did so much work. I mean, part of it was not expecting the angles he was approaching from. I do think positioning was huge here for them, but I look forward to game number 5. Both of these teams are so close to day 2.
It's on a knife's edge, but to give their cutting edge feedback is the desk.
Thank you very much, Jaws. What a game coming out from Mouse right there, and especially Apfel stepping up on that Vox. And we saw later on in the game, playing this perfectly against the composition they were against, like hard engaging straight onto the back line, making sure that there wasn't any poke coming out, there wasn't any of this kiting nonsense. They wanted to go straight on into these fights.
Yeah, and said it was going to be difficult, but they were up to the task. They played it exactly the way I was predicting they would. I just wasn't sure if they would be able to actually execute on it, but their execution was impeccable. Able to get those engages, prevent a lot of that movement that G2 had from being able to take over the game, and keeping those carries safe just by being the aggressors.
Yeah, I kind of wish that they did a Weapon Blackfeather and a CP Sky in jungle, because CP Sky will beat a Celeste easy in the early game especially, and they needed to secure that early game jungle. But instead, G2 let Mousesports scale. And you know, with Celeste scaling, and once she reaches her level 8 power spike and her ultimate with Broken Myth, Shatterglass, she does so much damage. We see I'm the Doom land such clutch you know, Solar Storm ultimates. I mean, it was beautiful in terms of how he played the Celeste here.
Yeah, certainly an expert bit of play coming out from I'm the Doom, and that's exactly what we expect from a player like that. He wasn't even the one grabbing the kills, but he was definitely dealing a huge amount of damage when we got into these fights. And you can see how close this early game was. It was so back and forth between the teams.
Yeah, it was a lot of fights that could have gone either way very easily, but Mousesports was able to consecutively pick up that small little edge in those team fights and be able to build upon the advantages they were getting. You know, we've been hearing about Sky being this strong counter to a Celeste, but thus far we just really haven't seen it.
Yeah, and I believe it was at about 13:45 there was a significant ace that came on through into the game, and this was obviously in favor of Mass as they started to step things up.
Yeah, this is such a beautiful, like the bulwark from Just Man and then the ultimate from Honor Doom secured that fight for them. They did such a good job, and you know, Keanu, he had Echo. I don't know why he didn't just Echo his Gaping Wall and double stun twice. Instead, he tries to root and misses the root, and that kind of cost them that key fight because G2 needed to win that fight to get back into this game. And after that fight, you know, they got a 5K code lead for Mouse, and then it just basically went downhill. And second of all, there's no poison shift against a Lyra composition, and Sky is going to fall off. And I love the Vox build coming out from Apple here because Breaking Point Monaco is actually really, really good into Weapon Sky.
Yeah, and it meant that in those fights, not only did he have that attack speed, but the more damage he could dish out, the more he would scale into the fight. But as well, when you're next to a Celeste, when there's a Celeste on the enemy team, you want to focus that. You want to bring it down. So then with the Breaking Point stacking up on Apfel, he can just run wild later on.
And there was also just some, that was a beautiful portal from the Lyra there. Just, the Impale came out, looked like it was going to lock them up. The portal comes through, gets them all to safety while getting them into a position to then turn around and re-engage the fight immediately. Again, the positioning and the effectiveness of their engagements were so strong from Mouse.
Yeah, and you pay attention to Vox. He is getting so many stacks, usually 5 to 8 Breaking Point stacks faster than the Sky can. And that's why the Vox build from Apple is so good because they don't have that much armor. You know, tier 2 armor, although good, it's still not enough to let the Vox scale with the Breaking Point.
And if you remember, this used to be the Vox build. The go-to Vox build was Breaking Point double monocle. The reason it stopped being the go-to build was because Poison Shiv became so strong, and so did Tension Bow. Both of those items get nerfed. All of a sudden, the Breaking Point double monocle build is coming back to power and is just as strong as it used to be.
And especially when you don't need the Poison Shift to deal with any healing on the enemy side, you have much more freedom to go in whatever build you want to go into. We need to start to talk about the draft as we are going into Game 5 in this series. What a way to start the tournament right now. We said that the seeding wasn't particularly accurate on this one, and well, it looks like they are both at exactly the same level right now. Let's talk about the draft. What do we expect to see picked up here? Because Celeste has definitely been a pivot point. So has Lance. There's definitely a lot of things in the air. Idris once again taken off the table, though.
Yeah, so we're going to see Cath again prioritized as a key ban. I would love for them to switch it up and really pull out this Grace pick here, because Grace works so well in so many compositions that we see right now in this meta. So they're going to go ahead and just pick the Lyra up. So that does leave Lance open. So they're probably going to pick up the Lance here and just either ban or take the Grace like they did in the Game 1 draft. So it may turn out very similar in terms of what we've been seeing here.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, the Kestrel is available.
Wow,
They're going to go
Vox.
with the Vox. We have not seen Vox be prioritized like this in this series thus far. Usually when it comes out, it's like the last pick or second to last.
This feels a lot like regular season right now with this draft.
Yeah, I like it because Vox can build a Poison Shift build, and they'll counter the Lyra. And that's why sometimes people won't pick a Lyra first pick if Vox is up, because Vox is so good into a Lyra due to the Poison Shift and its attack speed build.
And now by banning away the Kestrel, G2 is almost forcing the Grace ban. Even though we have not seen Grace get played yet, it is forcing Mousesports to have to say, okay, we want to make sure we have the only healer here. We're going to ban away the Grace, and that leaves so many options available for G2.
Yeah, they're probably going to pick up the Lance here to save the last counter pick to the enemy composition. That's a key counter pick jungle there. So I think Lance will potentially come out here for the side of G2. That's been a very popular pick for both teams right now.
Yeah, and you just saw in that statistic there, and an interesting point to bring up is Vox is actually Hundo's most played carry this season. It's something that he's very comfortable on, something that, I mean, across the board, Vox is just one of the most played carries, full stop. Never mind just for Hundo, but definitely something he's proficient on. And once again, the Lance comes in. Yeah. This could go to Keanu, but it also could go to Dark Potato.
Yeah, we're going to see Celeste picked up here with a strong jungler, potentially a Grumpjaw. Again, I don't see a lot of Cruel for whatever reason. Cruel is so strong with a Celeste. So let's see if they do pull out that Celeste and a potential weapon carry such as Cruel or Glaive here.
And it's really surprising even more so that we haven't seen the Cruel, because Cruel has historically been such a popular pick in Europe specifically. So the fact that they really haven't been looking towards it seems very strange to me. But with the Lyra there, the Lance is going to be flexed. So it's they can't really say, okay,
Wow,
this is going to be a
Samuel gets
Captain
picked
Lance or
up
anything
here.
like that. So Lyra Samuel is a very common duo that we see a lot. I would expect them to then go for something in the lane, something with some weapon power to be able to try and go toe-to-toe with that Vox. Maybe something like the Ringo that we see or saw start to come up a little bit more at the end of the season to try and outrange the Vox throughout the early to mid game.
Yeah, I think Ringo would make sense here. I don't really like the weapon Blackfeather laners and the playstyle with a Samuel here. They're going to go with Gwen, and we know Apfel actually is one of his signature carries. He was amazing on Gwen. It's a great pick into Lance because her skedaddle just neutralizes the root there. So I think here G2 will probably go with Celeste to counter the Samuel jungle. Celeste is known to be a very good pick into Samuel, although would lose the early game against a Samuel Lyra, but definitely would win the late game once she scales.
Yeah, the Gwen was actually one of their highest win rate heroes throughout the regular season. 4 games, or four wins, 1 loss for an 80% win rate. The highest win rate of any hero that was played more than 2 or 3 times.
And it was something that we saw a lot towards the start of the season in Split 1. It
When
really
they were winning.
fell off towards the later stage of the season. So I'm curious to see how well it will do now that we're here on Update 2.7. But here we go.
Wow,
Fortress comes on through for G2 Esports. Now, interestingly enough, I was actually talking to Rap last night at the Gangstars party, and I asked him what his favorite hero to play was right now, and he said Fortress. So this may well be a Captain Fortress alongside that Weapon Lance for Dark Potato.
It very likely will be. I would assume so, but there is the argument to be made for running it as the jungle Fortress to have the CP and the Vox go weapon power. But it'll be interesting. We know that G2 is a team that is not afraid to go double weapon power.
Yeah, I think that's a mistake though. I would rather see a CP Fortress because double weapon power is really easy to counter, and once you get to the late game and your opponent has Atlas along with armor, it's gonna be a really tough sell. So they need to snowball early with Fortress. And I think they picked Fortress specifically to counter the Lyra heals and to get onto the Samuel and burst him down.
Well, we'll see if they can bring that to pass. It's time to head into Game 5 of the first series here at the Unified Western Live Championship. It's time to get over to our casters and get into the game.
Thank you very much, Munch. And I can't quite hear you, everybody. This is game number 5 of the the first best of 5 in the Western Live Championships. I'm ready to get into the game. 2-2.
It's going to be really good. And also, compositionally, we've got some interesting ones here, Juz. I actually really like seeing a Fortress out of G2. It feels right. This is something that if there's a legacy for that team, along with maybe the Lance in the jungle, was something that they've always really liked. Back when Dingo was on the lineup, they certainly played it a great deal. It's something that they should know how to work around and work with. Let's see if they can make it happen.
We'll have to wait and see. Here we go, onto the fold for the last time in this best of 5. Who will go to day number 2? This game will decide it. Seeing a brand new pick once again in this Gwen up in the lane.
Yeah, the Gwen also a very interesting pick in addition to that Fortress, something we haven't been seeing a ton of. It does do a lot of damage, and it's going to be something that can fight well early, which is another thing to take into consideration here, although look at this, level 1 gank.
Oh, Apfel dodging out of the Impale, but taking a lot of damage. He could just go down right now, and he does to Dark Potato's Lance. G2 starting it off strong.
We call that one a set piece, Jaws. That's when they already knew what they were going to do before the game started. Really nice stuff there. Very well prepared by G2. You can see that they've been putting their thinking caps on back at the hotel last night, and it works out beautifully. If Hundor can actually push this wave in, and also, I would have liked to see maybe Dark Potato stay in lane. Sorry, not Dark Potato, Kiana and Nakoa stay in lane, just to help push that wave in to deny some creeps to the turret, make it harder for Apfel to farm up. As it stands, I can't see Apfel missing too many of these, maybe a couple, but at this level of play, it's pretty easy to land these creeps. So actually, yeah, exactly a couple. 10 to 8.
Yeah, exactly that. Well counted. Normally caster math isn't too great, but you're proving your worth, AJ. Now,
I'm on point so far.
Oh, yes, you are. Dark Potato, with that 1 kill, he's picked up 3 weapon blades to boots. We saw it in game number 1, his Lance in the jungle is just terrifying to go up against, especially when coupled with this Fortress. The engage potential as soon as Keanu hits level 6 is just terrifying.
For anyone out there thinking of doing the stat challenge, oh, hang on.
Oh my goodness, there we go. The engage onto Just Man, 2 stuns land.
One
that
more.
wall hit just too much for him to bear. Hundor finds it with the last basic attack, does dash away as well. Sonic Zoom leading him to safety. G2 pedal to the metal.
It really is, and you know, Sweet Joe was talking about double weapon power in the late game, sure, but you gotta get there, right? Mousesports at this pace might not even make it. Look at this, Keanu doing so much work. And the Doom is here to back up his teammate, though. Dark Potato, he wants to go
nice route straight onto Atfel. The Gideon Wall's going to displace him. Beautiful play. And Doom will find his second kill of the game. Was under a lot of threat, but G2 managed to back him up.
So if you guys are thinking of doing that stat challenge, you want to win some ice, I would definitely do a stat of how many times Dark Potato hits his impale. I'm curious. I think it might be close to 100% at this point. But beautiful early game here from G2. As I said, set piece in the beginning, going for that level 1 gank. Very few people make that play in Vainglory, and it's something which can really pay dividends so long as your jungle doesn't get punished too hard. It didn't seem like Mousesports was able to make much happen off the back of that one. They're also doing a great job of keeping that pressure on. They're not just going to find a kill and then do nothing with it. They're trying to snowball their lead. They know that if they get to the late game, Mousesports can just buy certain defensive items that make it very hard. Plus, Samuel is a hero that's very good against a composition that just wants to run at you. You just throw the Drifting Dart backwards, you buy a Frostburn, and you're going to be able to slow people up pretty consistently.
Bright Ball used fairly early. G2 not willing to engage after that. The Drifting Dart did come out from Doom. It's going to be a big cooldown used for Just Man, though. There's the Impale Atfel underneath the turret, using the Skedaddle to get that cleanse. Does end up walking away. Doom takes a couple of turret hits, actually.
Much.
Almost went down, so now they're having to back off.
If he didn't take those turret shots, then Mousesports would have forced G2 to be in a really scary position and have to clear the wave whilst being at risk of dying. As it stands, having to go back, they've actually opened up a window for perhaps even aggression out of G2, but more importantly, for them to back, heal, buy items, and shove the lane out. That was a real window for Mousesports, man. They had an opportunity there. Now, one thing we haven't talked about a lot, we've been talking a lot about the early game of G2. We do have to talk about the early game of Mousesports as well. Samuel can be a very scary force early on. You do a lot of damage with the Malice and Verdict, especially once you pick up your first item. And also Gwen, everyone knows Gwen is a very strong early game pick. Lyra protects those quite nicely. They play well from range. Although G2 has a clear plan of what they want to do, what they want to do is also clear to Mousesports. You know, they just want to dive in, they just want to go aggressive. Mousesports, if they play correctly, can actually abuse that a little bit. They can lock down the area with Bright Bulwark, try and get poked as G2 initiates and disengage, then they can turn the heat up. G2 needs these engagements and these victories and fights to be very snappy. If the fights go too long, it's not going to work well for them.
Atfel on his way, though. He's on his way to that tension bow, which Dark Potato has finished for G2. Those early 2 kills have really helped out. Maybe looking for an Impale here. Goes forward, does miss. Bright Ball goes down as well. Drifting Dart does come forward and actually just kiting back. The healing was just a little bit too much for them to deal with. Nice Oblivion onto Keanu. Does end up going down. There's the first one on the board for Mousesports. G2, what looked like the perfect engage, was just dodged out by Mouse.
This is another reason why Samuel is really good into G2's composition. It's quite likely that G2 stacks on top of each other in a fight. Samuel's area's effect damage does a lot of work. I mean, even Buckshot at the earlier levels, as weapon power, does deal significant damage. G2 got punished exactly in the way that I was talking about there. You know, they tried to just go in, but Mousesports controlled the area too well. I think that G2 really needs to focus on controlling vision, finding opportunities to go in where they're not necessarily 3v3. You know, try and take an unfair advantage. Try and fight when you have the numbers lead. But also try and fight maybe in the jungle. Try and fight in locations that have more walls for you to have access to, that have objectives that aren't strong allies to the enemy team in the form of that turret. If G2 picks the fights in the right way, they can work around these problems that the composition has.
Now rotating back from those fronts. Bright Bulwark already used just to make sure Dark Potato can't get on the back line. Same with the Buckshot. Buckshot's going to be quite important. Does reveal anybody hiding in the bushes and slows up a little bit as well. G2, they need to be able to find an engagement here, but Just Man's very, very good at disengaging. And the Doom going forwards, does have Oblivion available to him in a few seconds as well. Dark Potato taking a lot of damage to it, so is that bow. Dives in from Keanu. Very, very close. Oblivion does come out, does miss. Actually, here's the turret instead, but you can't sleep machinery.
I don't know. Have you ever slept your computer? It's an
very
option
true.
right next to restart and shut down.
Technically sleep. Mine doesn't snore at least.
It doesn't snore?
Nope.
My computer's pretty loud, actually. All right, so this turret's likely to be going down during this push. I don't see G2 being able to defend it, and smartly they're not going to try. That would have definitely been a big mistake. Right now, Mousesports is really abusing the fact that G2 doesn't get to fight unless they all in. You know, it's maybe G2, an argument could be made that they just need to go quicker. That's another problem that is perhaps not panning out here. Something like when Oblivion misses, as it did, it is a window of opportunity, is an option, but it's tough. G2, also one other thing to take into consideration is that they do have a spike coming up where they will probably have an advantage. Specifically, it's when Hundor hits 2 items, because right now, stuck on just a Poison Shiv and a Heavy Steel, not really the best spot to be in. We've seen much quicker 2 tier 3 spikes. Trying to get Apple.
Apple gets jumped on, but yeah, that's a lot of damage. That buckshot, but triple root's going to be big there. Becomes the attack of the pack as well. Fountain healing up G2. Can't really find the damage. Mouse, that looks so bad, but the healing is just too much for G2 to actually bear, and they're going to have to back off. Minion Candy used once again for Mouse, and they're pushing forward.
I actually would have liked to see G2 go in off the back there. Right when Mouse started to move up, I think G2 could have gone in because Imperial Sigil was down, there was no more healing. Maybe they would have had enough damage to actually pick up a kill. But here comes Keanu, healed up from base.
Another bright bulwark. Keanu is healed, did manage to get the back off. They're going to be able to defend their turret for the moment. But still Mouse with that execution potential from Atfel. Tension Bow prop, along with his passive prop, just destroys Hundor in the front line. They have to play around that.
All right, we got a Sorrow Blade now for Apfel's Gwen. That's going to be big. We've already seen pretty substantial damage coming out of just the Tension Bow. This amplifies that a lot. We do have the answer from Hundor. He's picked one up as well, but his ability to do damage is much more contingent on G2 controlling the fight in the way that they are able to use to their advantage. If things go wrong, then Hundor will not be able to do nearly as well as Gwen. Doesn't have the bailout card up her sleeve. That is the skedaddle. Right now, Mousesports, I like the fact that they're playing up a little bit. I do think they need to stock up on some scout traps, pop them down in these bushes. If you know that you're able to force G2 back and make them, run around and play to the beat of your drum, you might as well drop the vision, right? You might as well gain that additional information, that additional knowledge.
Attack of the back's going to come through. A nice Yithy and wall onto Atfel. They're targeting him and he ends up going down. And a beautiful Oblivion actually onto 3 members of G2 is going to send them packing though. But Just Man a little bit caught. Passageway used. Keanu, Hundor and Dark Potato following it through, but dashing underneath that turret using those boots. They are able to escape with only losing 1.
That's why you need scout traps, straight up. The flank coming out of Dark Potato won that fight 100%. As Apfel, where do you go? Even if you skedaddle, there's not really a good direction you can move there. If you're next to the turret, you're going to get stunned there. If you move down, you're going to be next to the wall, you're going to get stunned there. If you move on top of the turret, you're not moving towards your base, so you're not actually making distance. There's no good answer, Right now, especially the gold mine goes away, immense payout for G2. They're right back in this. They have a gold lead. I don't know necessarily if that gold lead is going to translate to a heck of a lot right now, but certainly it's something they can try and leverage.
300 apiece. We are 10 minutes in with only 1,000 gold separating the 2 teams. G2 are actually in the lead at this point, even though they are down 1 turret. Now, where do they go from here? That is the question, because, like you said, vision not in Mouse's favor right now. They need to be able to get more scout traps down and more flares in order to spot out Dark Potato's flanks. It's perfect for him if he's unspotted in these fights, but, I mean, realistically, Hundor's only going to get stronger. He's got Sorrow Blade now. He's working towards another damage item.
All right, Mousesports moving up again quite aggressively. That flare lasted a while, but here comes Dark Potato.
Attack of the pack is going to come through. Bite Bulwark's going to be there, but they're just going to push on past it. Waveroot's only going to find 1. He's going to find Doom, and now Dark Potato is going to have to protect Hundor. They do it perfectly as that fell falls first, but Oblivion is really good for 2 members versus 1. The Doom goes down, but the captain, Just Man, does manage to pick up the kill, at least on Hundor, so he does end up falling. Doesn't mean G2 can do a whole lot now.
Again, scout traps, right? If you keep getting flanked and the same thing keeps happening, it's a bad situation to be in. Let's have a look at the replay. You see Dark Potato from down at the bottom is able to just use boots and get all the way behind the opponents. Also, Mousesports, they didn't really play to their win condition in that fight. That's kind of the second thing we got to talk about. They weren't focusing on kiting. They were focusing on trying to get in a deep position to take down Hundor quickly, and you don't need to take down Hundor quickly with the composition that Mousesports has. Sure, it's nice if you can, if it doesn't punish you, but it definitely does punish you if that's going to buy time for Dark Potato without even using combat roll to get behind you and put you in a position where you can't retreat, right? Hundor, he also almost got out of that fight. That Oblivion, rather than being a huge nightmare, was nearly kind of a pleasant nap. But thankfully for the side of Mousesports, Just Man was able to secure at least that kill and avoid the ace. Now, G2, even though we've seen 2 fights back-to-back go their way, I'm not willing to say that they're in the driver's seat. The fights they've been making happen have been off of the back of Mousesports overextending with no vision. If they can make the same kinds of fight happen straight up, I'll be feeling a lot different about G2's hopes here.
Keanu's hiding. That's going to be a beautiful crucible to get out of the way of the Impale. The bright ball is going to come through. He's going to stop a lot of those walls hitting. Harddoor going really low in the back line. Isn't going to get sleeped. And actually, yes, he does. He actually gets killed by the Oblivion. And the Doom getting chased out by Keanu. It is a 1v1. Darktator rolling forwards, though. Can he find the last basic attack? He can. That passageway used by Just Man to get out of there. And underneath the turret, Keanu's going to go down. Whoops. That'll leave Dark Potato and Just Man. Again, the last member's alive. They're finding these fights, like you said, but they cannot find the objectives that they need.
That was a much better straight-up fight from G2. At the same time, though, Mousesports, weird positioning throughout. Let's have a look at the replay. You can see right off the bat, Dark Potato doesn't exactly land a stun. There's a lot of opportunity for a disengage, but the speed boost, combined with the fact that Mousesports does not commit to retreating, puts Apfel in a very dicey position. He also misses wildly on the Ace's high. Without that to buy time, it is admittedly tough for him to make as much distance as he would have liked. I would like to see Just Man pop Portal earlier there too. Yeah, maybe your teammates are gonna actually be pulled closer to the turret as well as your enemies, but at the same time, you're gonna be putting them in a position where they have to fight closer to your turret. You have something to leverage.
There is a small pause. Looks like maybe there's a little problem with Mousesports, but we should be getting back into game very, very shortly. Just Man's like, my bright bulwarks aren't on cooldown quick enough. I need more of them. We have seen actually Echo being picked up by Lyra's at the end of the season. There's something else to point out. Echo being quite a versatile item now.
I'm not sure I'd go for it here. You know, the thing is about Echo on Lyra, it's really, really good if you're against a lot of dashes, right? Because Bright Bulwark twice is the best ability against that.
The best.
Right?
That's a good way to put it.
But the composition that we're seeing out of G2 here isn't really that focused on it. Sure, it's good for them if the Impale can come out and if Combat Roll and the... which one is it? Truth of the Tooth or Law of the Claw? I'll never remember. Okay, so yeah, sure, it's good if those are able to come out and aren't interrupted by Bright Bulwark. Yeah, try saying that one 10 times fast. But at the same time, right, there's a lot of just straight up movement speed on that lineup, and that's kind of the way that they've been making plays happen. Like if you look at Dark Potato 2 fights ago, he did not roll into position, he did not impale someone to kick off a fight, he just ran through Bright Bulwark with boots. Once they get War Treads, I actually think on both the Lance and the Fortress, it's going to be not that useful to have the Bright Bulwark. Sure, it's good, you know, maybe it's fine, but I prefer to get like an Atlas Pauldron because it shuts down weapon power builds so heavily. I prefer just more armor so that you're able to stay on the front line, body block for your team, that kind of thing. Also, just picking up overall defensive items is probably more useful. But if she were to go for an Echo, the bigger reason why it would be good is probably the Imperial Sigil. Being able to throw down 2 of those lets you fight in a larger space, not necessarily clump up for an Impale or a Githian wall. There are reasons why it could be strong too.
Well, we are back into the game. The brief pause was also brief, thank goodness. Mousesports seemed to have sorted out the issue. That's pick and ban. Where are we in the game? There we go. Perfection. G2 right now, they are playing very perfect in these fights. Like we mentioned, Dark Potato, he's 4-0 right at this very moment in time. This Lance is so formidable, and you wonder why people are scared of it, and this is exactly the reason why.
I mean, this composition is something G2 would have ran months and months ago. It's definitely something they're comfortable on, both in terms of the individual heroes, as well as the composition as a whole. I do want to touch on the fact that Lyra has now picked up an Atlas Pauldron, like we were discussing during the pause. That's going to be a big item. It also really shuts down Lance's ability to deal damage. Your attack speed is already so slow, it just makes it kind of a joke. But that being said, maybe a reflex block will come through. We'll see what happens. War Treads are already done on Keanu. I think that's a critical item. I would like to see Dark Potato go for them very soon, but I think, yeah, first things first, getting a Asara Blade makes a lot of sense. He's in a bad position now, though.
He is. Let's use that combat roll. Ace's high goes a little bit wide. Did even pop the Aegis just in case. For G2, they are getting a flank off there. Attack the back is going to get popped, and Hundor in the back line just doing a whole immense load of damage. Oblivion's going to sleep too, and once again, Mouse just seemed to pull this one around at the last very second with both Hundor and Apfel trading.
I can't believe Dark Potato was playing so aggressive at the end of that fight. That was nice stuff, actually. I think that the fact that Hundor gets so much fortified health when Attack of the Pack gets popped really took Mousesports by surprise. I don't think they were ready for that.
Apfel right now is 1-6. This is the worst scoreline we've seen him in this best of 5 right now. Maybe this is the nerves setting in. They are in a critical situation. They need to be able to pull out a win here to face the game's in day number 2. Right now, we're 15 minutes in. G2, they've had the fights, but right now they're just picking the right target. And yes, that's Apfel, and I guess that's why it's had so many deaths. But at the same time, you've got Skedaddle, you've got the ability to use Bright Bulwark on Lyra. It's got to be maybe a little bit over-aggression from him to put himself in these fights.
Yeah, I do think Apfel has been positioned very aggressively. The attack range on Gwen is not great, so you kind of have to be a bit further up if you want to deal damage to Hundor. And it is also worth noting that although Dark Potato is somewhat threatening on the front line, it's mostly in a burst capacity. Over the course of a longer fight, you really do need to be dealing damage pretty much exclusively to Hundor if you want to actually win it. So I don't blame Apfel for trying to be kind of aggressive. All right, that was a good Bright Bolt. That Bright Bolt did a lot of work.
That was very, very perfect. Looking good, Just Man. Just going to now chase G2 away. A little bit of damage now on the side of the Fortress. You said you wanted to see him mix up the build. A little bit of defensive stats, a little bit of teamwork, and now actually picking up.
So Fortress
damage.
didn't really need anything past this, like core utility package, right? You've got the War Treads, Atlas, and Fountain. Crucible isn't even that great because a lot of the time you're trying to push past an Oblivion anyway. I do think at maybe after the Aftershock, it would be good to pick up a Crucible. But for now, I'm actually totally cool with Keanu pushing the tempo with his team, trying to make the game end sooner by going for something that's going to augment the burst. That's going to let Hundor, you know, we saw that last fight, right? He traded with Apfel. Well, if there's an Aftershock on the Fortress and they did that additional burst to Apfel, maybe the trade is more like Hundor lives on 10%. That's the kind of thing that can happen. Crucible wouldn't have done a lot there either. So I don't mind this. I do think, though, eventually, absolutely Crucible against Oblivion makes a lot of sense. You've already got aces, so they're not getting picked up on Dark Potato or Hundor.
Very little armor on the side of Mouse right now. Only a couple of coat of plates. Now, Hundor has actually picked up the Bone Saw here to chew through some of that. It's going to be quite influential considering they're going double weapon power. In fact, Suijay said it on the desk, they aren't afraid to do this. They are one of the teams that do and can play around it.
Yeah, it's definitely something which can be strong if your opponents don't react the right way. I think this is a little light armor, light on the armor, rather, from Mousesports. But if the game goes long enough, they're going to have plenty of time to pick up more, and it's not as if G2 Esports is pushing very heavily. I mean, not even one turret picked up. Dark Potato's got an Atlas in this next fight. Keep your eyes peeled on that. There's a metal jacket for Gwen, but keep your eyes on the Atlas from Dark Potato. He needs to make it work for it to be, in my eyes, the right decision over War Treads. Because War Treads, you're guaranteed getting value out of every single time because you're giving value to your teammates. Atlas, if it gets blocked or if you're not able to get in position because you don't have War Treads, could be a rough situation. Obviously, Keanu might be able to do enough with his, but I do think 2 is important for G2 Esports.
G2 looking very reminiscent of their London performance as they came in #1 seed, but this time they came in as the #6 seed. Now they want to prove themselves to EU and actually just, in fact, the whole West and the world, if you will. They're really showing their prowess as a team and their ability to chain CC as well. Not necessarily this composition, but compositions previous. It's just elegant.
I would like G2 to wait like a minute more before they fight at the least, just so Keanu can get a reflex block. Crucible, yeah, maybe you don't need it. But if he gets hit by Ace's Hide, all of the utility's gone for Mousesports. G2, nice play.
Well, they're going to need a utility. That's a passageway into the bulwark. I believe it's going to come through. It's going to get dodged out. In fact, it's going to sleep one. But look in the front line. Hundor is just surviving this entirety. Mouse, well, the flank off, but it didn't matter in the end. G2 find a double. Looking for the triple, but I'm the Doom is going to be able to use his boost to get out. A proactive play of just pushing the lane, taking the turret. Worked out in so much favor for them.
Proactive play, great from G2 Esports, but reactive play from Mousesports, very confusing to me there. Portaling directly onto a team that wants nothing more to be on top of you is very risky, especially when your team composition excels at kiting. They were trying to make up for a mistake, which was giving up position in the lane to an extent where G2 could just go for the turret, and they got punished so heavily for it. G2 Esports, with that, find a Kraken, a turret, and 2 kills. This is the kind of lead that just breaks the game wide open. G2 Esports have their eyes set, Jaws, on day 2, and maybe taking down another North American team.
Well, it's in their record. It's in their blood now. They're looking for blood. A Kraken on the board. And actually, that was the latest turret we've seen taken. Latest first turret we've seen taken by both these teams. Stretching on 18 minutes. Now we're approaching that 20-minute mark. They're looking pretty strong. That turret's going to be going down very quickly.
All right, so keep your eyes. Oh, here we go.
Oh, hang on a second. Keep your eyes on the team fight right here. Ace's side's going to be good for that. Oblivion wasn't enough to just sway them. Attack at the back comes through, and that will be Just Man using that passageway to get over the wall, but it's going to get followed through again. Hundor comes up big. I'm the Doom, last one alive. Mouse. Oh, scurries back into his little hole. An ace for G2. The Kraken's still on the board. They're going to crack the base.
This is rough, man. When you've got something like that Kraken to play off of, it's not so hard for G2 to make distance in. They're not going to get hit by the turret till they start dealing damage. This could be a game-winning push here. Kraken's still over half health.
Oh dear, Apfel, he's up in 4 seconds. Just Man up in 9, Doom up in about 10-2. There goes one turret. Those timers are getting reduced, but are they going to be out? Are they going to be enough? Another turret falls, all 3 members are down. Crystal is going to get focused here by G2. They're chunking it, the Kraken's getting untouched, and we will see you in day 2.
Beautiful stuff from G2 Esports. Mousesports, it's a heartbreaking loss. They came into summer season looking like a whole new team after their lineup changed from spring, but they weren't able to translate that into the championship performance. Part of that, maybe it's to do with live championship experience. G2 has a lot of it at this point. Almost all their players. Hundor, it was his first time last time. Now he's been here, been around the block. You could see that they were very disciplined. They played very smart. It did go to 5 games, but they were 5 great games.
G2, can they make a repeat performance like they did in London? Beating those NA teams, we'll have to wait and see. But to break that series down a little bit more, we've got Joe and the guys on the desk.
The series score before these games began was 3-2 in favor of Mousesports, but the series score is 3-2 in favor of G2 now, taking this 5-game series in style in that final one. And what a game to finish things off as well. Once again, we saw G2 proactive in the early game, but it was very back and forth. We didn't see things really start to get decided until much later on into the game.
Yeah, it was a really interesting matchup because these two compositions was almost like the epitome of the old style of European play versus the new style of European play. On the side of Mousesports, you had this heavy siege composition focus. Lyra, Samuel, Gwen, they wanted to just slowly push the lane, try and poke and harass and look for fights once they got their opponents low. Whereas G2 had Fortress, Lance, and Vox. They were just rushing in every single time they had their opportunity. It was like Mousesports would set up this siege. They would do a really good job of getting the siege set up, but then G2 would say, no, we're not having any of that. Dive right in and find the fights, and there wasn't enough kite ability from the side of Mousesports to deal with it.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I would say Mousesports didn't play to their comp's kind of win condition. I mean, they got an early turret in this game, securing it, before the 7-minute mark. But what they need to do is they cannot fight when the ultimate is up. They cannot overextend. Like Fortress's Mortal Wounds from his Truth of Tooth does so much burst damage. And what they need to do is they need to kite with Samuel in his Drifting Dart. They cannot overextend. See, Apfel actually overextends here. The Fountain comes up, but Fortress Mortal Wound just counters the Lyra heal and the Fountain that Just Man pops, and they're able to not close that fight out. And I feel like in a lot of fights here, they need to kite with Samuel and protect him, and then try not fighting with the Wolves. And I feel like every time they overextend it, Apfel would get in the front line, he'll get this, blown up and focused, and then Mousesports would lose the fight.
And I think part of it was, Apfel's positioning wasn't great this game, but it wasn't, atrocious. It was the fact that G2 were just constantly pressuring him. Every single fight, that was who they went after immediately. It didn't matter where the rest of their opposition was positioned. They went into these fights searching for Apfel and were able to find their mark.
Yeah, but Apfel was intentionally going in aggressive. He just needs to kite with Samuel, let Samuel hit his Frostburn, get more broken mid-stacks, because they have to dive onto Samuel and Gwen. You don't want to make their dive easier. Fortress is a dive comp. You want to back off, and look at the Drifting Dart. They're not fighting with Samuel. They're not fighting in the direction of Drifting Dart. You cannot engage a dive comp. Just kite with Samuel, kite with Lyra, get another sigil up, heal up, and then continue to fight.
It's the classic thing of, if you dive a dive comp, you've done their job for them, right? At that point, the game is in their hands, and you can see these final fights were just G2 kind of putting the final nail in the coffin, just putting the cherry on the cake, diving straight on through, going through Just Man's own portal, actually, just to finish things off, get the ace for themselves, and then with the Kraken, they were able to push things through. And honestly, I think this game specifically was the most one-sided win. G2 managed to get all series, which is really good form from them, showing that they are progressing throughout the series. It's not just a matter of, you know, fighting tooth and nail the entire time. They were learning from each of these games.
Yeah, and I love the Bonesaw build from Hundor here, who's able to shred the armor, and they focus. Not only you have Bonesaw stacking, you have a lot of burst from the tension bow from Lance, and you have Vox doing a lot of damage with the armor shade. But you have Fortress with an Aftershock, and he's proccing mortal wounds not once, but twice sometimes. And that's just way too much burst damage for one person to handle, and that's why Apple just kept getting deleted every single fight.
Yeah, Apple was not having a fun time of it, but his lane opponent, Hundor, was. He's going to be able to get the MVP for this first series of the Unified Western Live Championship. He had a stellar performance, especially when he was on that Celeste. And that Celeste only got to him one time, I believe, because they were not letting that go to him again. And his Vox play was also absolutely superb. So, amazing performance from him. And we said right at the very start of the series, Hundor was definitely the player to watch out for when it comes to G2, just because of his mechanical play. When you think of Mousesports, you think of mechanics, but when you think of G2, if you're talking about mechanics, Hundor is the guy that comes to mind.
Yeah, and you can see, like, that's what G2 told us. They said that, hey, we've been a little rusty during the season, but we're focused, and once we practice and polish ourselves, we can perform and really show up today, and they definitely showed us.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely they have, and they are going to be moving on into day 2. They are going to be taking on the North American squad, Team Solo Mid tomorrow. It's definitely going to be a trial by fire for them, but let's see how Hundor is feeling after not only winning the series, but grabbing himself an MVP.
Someone in the crowd just said, are we related? I think that maybe we could get away with it. I think we look like brothers. Anyway, an amazing performance from you. I remember being stood with you on the stage back in London. You guys were first seed then for Europe. This season you came in as 6th seed. What went wrong throughout the entire season?
Yeah, in the online season, we were not really able to practice and prepare because of exams and vacation. So the season didn't went how we wanted them to go. And that was basically the reason why we are here, 6th seed now.
But I guess that's fine if you can then turn up and perform like that, a dominant display. And you look like a very aggressive G2, G2 that we've not really seen before. Is that something you were aiming for this event? Really try and show your aggression?
I think aggression is the key to victory.
Nice, short and simple, I like it. And then moving forward then, tomorrow you face off against TSM. Last time we saw you at London, you beat Immortals. You were the only team to beat an NA team. Is that going to be slightly different when you face off against TSM? How are you feeling about that?
Well, it's gonna be different, but I believe in miracles.
I believe in miracles too. I believe there was a famous song about that. I wonder if the guys on the desk believe in miracles. Munchables and the analysts, the rest of you guys, how are you feeling about the upcoming matches?
I certainly believe in miracles for Europe right now. Aggression is the key to victory. That's a nice little soundbite coming out from Hundor in that interview. Seems happy with his victory there, but as ever, Hundor, cool, calm, collected. I'm not sure I've ever seen him in any other state, to be honest. But that is going to be G2 with a very comfortable victory, and they're looking confident going on into day 2, which, you know, day 2 is going to be hard for them. Let's not beat around the bush. They're going against TSM tomorrow. It's the lowest EU seed versus the highest NA seed. So TSM versus G2. Let's just very, very quickly, what are the thoughts on this series immediately?
The fact that it's interesting, it's the exact opposite of G2's interregional matchup last time when they were the top EU seed against the bottom North American seed. So it's a little interesting to see that dynamic come through, but it's definitely going to require something close to a miracle, I feel, just because that difference in seeding is going to be very prevalent.
Yeah, all right, well, we'll have to see. That's going to be coming up tomorrow, but for today, we have a giveaway going on for you guys. Now, this is all happening in the chat. It's going to be Aura 16, Tarkon, and Cryburn. That's the first time I read the name, so I apologize. But you guys are going to be going home and winning yourselves some skins. You get the Vaquero Ringo skin today. That's going to be the giveaway for today. Tomorrow is King Glaive, and then the third day, on Sunday, finals day, it's going to be Bakuto Finn being given away in the chat. They're currently being given away in Twitch chat, but if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, make sure to be watching the chat as well, as you can have the shot at winning some skins. And some pretty nice skins to be winning.
Yeah, I want to know how you enter that. I need to get that Bakuto Finn.
I want that Finn skin.
Yeah, right.
The way
looks
you
like Godzilla.
You keep your eyes on the Twitch chat. That's how you enter that competition. So you guys maybe sneak your phones out during the broadcast and have a look if you can get involved.